Can I have a motion, please, to deputize Treasurer Slavens as the clerk for the day, for the evening?
So moved.
Support.
Motion made by Stephen Snyderman, supported by Summer Foster. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Treasurer Slavens, can you please take roll call?
Sure. Borninski,
Good evening.
Foster,
Good evening.
Ganguly,
Good evening.
Gran Hudak,
Good evening.
Clerk Seacrest, Treasurer Slavens, good evening, and Trustee Snyderman.
I'm here. Let's get it started.
All right.
Thank you. Can we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? And would you like to lead us in the pledge? Yes. Go ahead.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Madam Supervisor, I motion that we adopt the agenda.
Support.
Motion made by Treasurer Slavin, supported by Trustee Borninski. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Agenda is adopted. Can we have a motion to approve the minutes from April 23rd and 24th and May 7th, 2024?
Madam Supervisor, I motion that we approve the minutes from 4/23/24 and 5/7/24.
Support.
Motion made by Treasurer Slavin, supported by Trustee Foster. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Okay, the first public comment that we have right now is for public comment on agenda items only, and we have a regular public comment at the end of the meeting. So are there any public comments on agenda items only in the room? Okay. Oh, can you use the microphone, please? So again, yeah, this is for agenda items only.
For agenda item G5 to Mr. Norwood, are there any immediate plans to install new EV charging stations? And then for agenda item G8 to Mr. Norwood again, are there any incentives to use existing buildings rather than demolishing and building new ones as it's being done there? And secondly, will new childcare facilities affect speed limits or considerations for new sidewalks?
What did you say for G5? Sorry, didn't I? What was your question?
Are there any immediate plans to install new EV charging stations?
Okay, anyone else on agenda items? Okay.
Hello, Zishan Mali, Canton resident, long time. Thank you, Emma, for sending us the tennis information. This is in regards to agenda item G16. That's the considered to approve a bid award for the tennis courts restoration at Griffin and pickleball restoration at Freedom Park. So I'm an avid tennis player. Unfortunately, I leave the township every time I play tennis just because the courts here aren't in the condition that they need to be to play. So actually today I'm actually heading straight to Farmington to play. And I see that you guys are planning on doing some updates to the courts, which is greatly appreciated. It seems like based on this G16 executive summary, that the bid that you guys accepted came in lower than anticipated, which is good, obviously. But then it said that you guys also plan to do some restoration on the pickleball courts in Freedom Park, I believe, on Palmer and Sheldon, which me and my wife walk there once every couple weeks, and those courts are actually in phenomenal shape. So I don't know, I would encourage the township to look into fixing the courts at Floatin Park, which are actually in probably worse shape than Griffin Park, just to use the money in a better manner. In addition, Floatin Park, where the pickleball courts are, they have windbreakers there. Obviously, tennis being a sport where wind is a big factor, neither of the two parks in Canton that have tennis courts, Griffin or Floatin, have windbreakers. It's a pretty low cost. It's probably not going to be too much. I would encourage the township to look into that as well. so the play could be better, because if you have good courts, but the wind is high, it also is not very fun either. In addition, I'm not sure if adding lights to courts is possible, because obviously, right now, we're only limited to playing during the daytime. Obviously, in the summer, the nights start around 9 o'clock, so it's not too bad. But as we go into the fall, you have to stop playing by 7:30. It would be nice if we get some lights, and even if that requires a payment of whatever, some nominal fee every time you step onto the court somehow, that would be appreciated. So just would like the trustees to look into that. Would be nice to have some better tennis in the area. There are a lot of people that play, and obviously, unfortunately, a lot of us go to Northville, Novi, Farmington to play, and that's disappointing when we should have courts available in our own township. I guess I'll leave it to next to Mansour, who's also going to talk about that. Thank you very much and appreciate it.
My name is Mansour Nasser, and I'm also a Canton resident. Address 807 Bristol Court, Canton, Michigan. So I think I'll just specifically talk about the floating courts and the floating, just the park right there. I think it's unique in the sense that it's one place where the whole family can come and actually enjoy, because there's a walking path, there's a playground there, and if you look at Griffin or any other place, you don't have that. So I would prefer those courts over other ones, just because the whole family can come there. The kids can actually ride their bikes and stuff. But as Ishan said as well, those courts are almost in hazardous, condition to be up, because they have, I think somebody tried to do some patchwork some time ago, and it's literally has like bumps in there where you can trip and fall while you're playing. So I think it needs immediate attention. It would almost be a liability if they were left the way they are. I think some upkeep for those courts would maintain, them for a longer time, and it should be probably need-based as well. So yeah, I think I agree with Zishan as well, that some options for lights would be really, really helpful, because we were having to sometimes travel all the way to Novi High School, which is 30 minutes away to get that. But immediately before that, I think just the restoration is needed.
Weird.
Good evening, I'm Dan McCausland, 328 North Haggerty Road. Comment on G1, are we trading that in or is it staying in the fleet? G4, on those replacement $300,000 in genset units, how many actual hours are on the units? 2, how much trade-in or sale value outright of the units will we realize, if anything? 3, it's stated in the write-up that poor service of the gensets have been experienced, but yet we're under contract for a full-on service with those generators to be serviced. As somebody who holds a master's license in skid mount generator technology, I would say we don't have enough information here. Those units should go 10,000 hours is max life, depending on the powertrain system, which none of the data has been given here. And I came in today to try to see the data, but nobody has the data. So those are the very crux of the questions. Why are we changing those generators out, and what are we going to realize from those generators? So I think there needs to be a discussion about that before we just throw out $300,000 and some $1,000 in 2 gensets. Item G6, there's some language in there that I find very troubling. It says the proponent of the project shall exceed stormwater standards where permissible. I don't think that's legal. Code is code. Standards are standards. You can't pick one project and make them exceed code. Code is the written law. That's up to the Michigan Code Board, the legislature, the powers that be that make code and law. It's not up for a a local municipality to say, hey, you're going to exceed code. That's not, I can't even think that's legal. I think you'd have to ask legal counsel if that's even legal. That language shouldn't be in there. As a property owner in this community, I would be troubled by seeing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room? Okay, any attendees online, if you'd like to make a public comment on agenda items, you can raise your hand electronically and I will call on you. Okay, nothing online. Okay, great. Public comment on agenda items is closed. We will move to the next item. Okay, come on, no, why isn't this? Okay. Okay, great. Can I have a motion to pay the bills?
Madam Supervisor, I motion that we pay the bills.
Support.
Motion made by Treasurer Slavin, supported by Trustee Snyderman. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Okay, now we will start with a resolution. I'm sorry, the presentations first. We'll do those first because we don't have our resolution people here. So our presentation will be a report from Airspace Link, which we had seen before on drone readiness in Canton. John, would you like to give an intro about how we ended up here and what we're doing?
Yes, so we have been engaged with Airspace Link, when Michael and Anna are here tonight, as part of an initiative. Drones are becoming very much a part of our society and existence, and kind of going along with everything else that Canton does, we like to be kind of part of the leading edge and being ready for this to be implemented into our community. And in order to do that, there's a lot of things that have to happen, and so Airspace Link came in through funding received from SIMCOG, a grant that was received to help, also with the Conference of Western Wayne, I believe was where the funding came from, to pay for the assessment to help us understand where we are today based on what we already have, and I know Michael's going to touch on that a little bit, as also identifying some steps we need to do to move us forward. So with that, we're very fortunate to have them here with us today. And I know Michael will kind of give a little bit of background of who they are and why they have the permissions to be able to do the things that they do. But this is something that's happening all over the country, not just here in Canton or in Detroit or in Michigan. So this is a great assessment, a lot of great findings. So Michael's going to share those in anticipation of next steps for Canton, which we can talk about a little bit later on. So with that, I'll turn it over to Michael.
Great, thank you.
John. Thank you, Canton. I will take you on a bit of a journey because I think everyone's at different levels of understanding the integration of drones. So bear with me. I will take you a little bit about who we are from the federal level down to the state level, down to the regional level, down to Canton, and how Canton is participating in this. Just a little bit about myself. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Airspace Link. Anna's my co-founder, my wife. We started the company a few years ago here in Detroit. We have since grown to about 55 people. We've raised about $37 million as a company. It's pretty significant for a Midwest company in integrating drones. To give you a sense of the market scale that we have, again, I say, we started out as a PowerPoint 4 years ago, and now we are authorizing about 75%, or at least activating 75% of all drones here in the United States. So when you see a drone in the air, 75% of the time it checked our system to authorize flights. So we've gained significant market share. We're tied into 730 airports. 3,000 businesses use our platform to fly a drone. And we have about 55,000 drone pilots that use it to authorize flights here in the United States. So the best way to consider us is the Google Maps for drones. That's probably the easiest. We don't build drones, we don't fly them. We are the air traffic control systems for 400 feet and below, 55-pound drones or less. That's the best way to isolate that, which brings you down to the community. We are headquartered in downtown Detroit. We're the first company, one of the first in the book depository building, and we are working and did a walkthrough of the 14th floor of Michigan Central, which will be the air traffic control center for the operations, in some cases for Michigan. It's pretty neat to be part of that. The grand opening's next month, and we'll be part of that. And aerial mobility versus just on the ground. So it's pretty exciting, some of the things that are happening. But I did want to take a little bit of a step back and show you that we're doing this probably with 25 different cities and counties just here in Michigan. But here's one of our communities, one of our very first customers, and I thought it's a good idea to see where Canton is today and where this community is now. So I'm going to play a video. They're award-winning city that's been integrating drones, and I think they're a great case study.
Ontario, California is a city of 52 square miles with a population of about 182,000 currently, and it's continuing to grow. With our 3 freeways, the railways, and the Ontario International Airport, we really pride ourselves as a logistical hub throughout the region and the state.
We were really intrigued with how drones could be utilized within the city for various things like inspections, even in law enforcement, but realized that we had to crawl before we could walk.
We felt that having our skies mapped for drone delivery would be in our best interest for our future growth. So we had to find the right partners to make our vision come true.
A lot of cities that we talk to want a drone program. They just don't know where to start. So at Airspace Link, we offer cities a Fly Safe program. And what that is not just software, it's a success plan. It's doing an assessment of where the city is and where they want to go, and then creating a roadmap that aligns with that.
And so we did do an Airspace Link assessment with all of the different departments.
And had interviews with different various stakeholders to understand their needs and to match it with the technology.
It's really a 6-step process. Level 1 is how do we just have recreational operators flying safely within our communities. Level 2 is commercial operations. And then level 3 and 4, where you start putting in shared infrastructure and radar systems for safe operations, where you start to have drones fly beyond visual line of sight, all the way up to level 6, which would be air taxis, vertiports. So there's a whole path to support the advancements of drones within a community.
Without having a full understanding what's in our sky, we would be putting our community at risk.
Having a partner like Airspace Link that knows the landscape and is connected to a lot of the discussions that are happening at the federal level, I think is amazing.
Their city is completely covered by Class C airspace, which is tough to fly in. We have a product, AirHub Portal, that has organizational accounts where it can manage the entire city and all the operations that are happening, really making sure that there's a process, using a system that's already been approved by the FAA in some instances, and then being able to make sure they're staying compliant within their workflows.
My name is Patrick Woolweaver. I'm a sergeant with the Ontario Police Department, and I currently run our Unmanned Aerial Systems, or UAS team. How we're using drones now primarily as deployments in the field from patrol cars. Beyond that, we're kind of looking towards the future, wanting to do drone as first responder. What we've done is we launched test flights and responding directly to calls for service, getting eyes on early, letting our officers in the field have access to that information so they can make better decisions when they arrive on scene.
Having that tour guide in Airspace Link, building that strategy really helped us get to where we're at.
When I met with Ontario in 2020, they had maybe 1 drone pilot, a couple of drones within their GIS and IT department. Today, they have over 50 drone pilots and over 20 drones running different types of operations, from data collection to crime analysis to drones as a first responder. It's amazing what they're doing here. I think the reason I want to share that is because that's what Canton just went through. That city, we do an assessment every year to reassess where they're at and where they're going. Canton kind of has done the first assessment, kind of a baseline. What do you have for pilots? What drones do you have? And then what each department would like to do with drones or integrate in the future. So that gives you a sense of a community that's moved 3 years into the process and has all different types. They're now up to 60 drone pilots on staff, which is amazing. And they're doing things that's hard to even believe what they're doing. Water testing, swift water rescue, roof inspections. It's just amazing what they've been able to do and get a process in place. Something very important at the highest level is the state of Michigan wants to be the leader in the country in integration of drones. I think this is really important. There was $17 million approved last year for the integration of drones, and there's been some recent news. One is at Airspace Link, we've been hired. We're hired to do a feasibility integration for the state of Michigan. That was a report that was published with the Department of Transportation Aeronautics Group. And then that funding came through, and then MDOT announced that they're putting in a test corridor in downtown Detroit, which is a 3-mile radius, which will be a beyond visual line of sight, like advanced systems deploying to Detroit. And this is information. I went on stage 3 weeks ago in San Diego with MEDC and OFME in Michigan Central, and there is a grant. There's $11 million sitting behind this grant in Michigan for Advanced Aerial Mobility Activation Fund, and that is something that a community can't apply for that unless they know what the heck they're doing. So think about what Canton has done. They now have a baseline of where they're at and a roadmap where they want to go, and they can now apply for grants to help support different types of drone operations. So that's really good news for Canton because there are a lot of communities scrambling trying to figure out how to apply. And hopefully we can get on this quickly and apply because it is open to start applications. We've already applied for 3 different use cases with some other communities. So how did we get here too is one is CWW, Council Western Wayne, said, tell you what, I know Detroit's going and doing this advanced system. We'd like to move forward and kind of unify our communities and not, in some cases, be left alone or behind, but also have these point solutions that can plug into the larger state system. And that's what's happening. And I'd say Romulus and Canton are a few of the communities that are taking the lead within the region of starting to do some advanced integrations within their community. Even Romulus has even changed their airspace because their high school wanted to use drones and they couldn't because they couldn't fly within the airspace. So we actually worked with them over 6 weeks. We're able to change the airspace so students can fly drones in their STEM program. So I'm going to stop there and I'm going to go into the assessment results. But I think one of the things that I will show is everyone wants to see what a drone delivery looks like. So our team was in Texas last week. We have operations running in Texas with the police department. We had their K-9 unit with drones running while we're doing food delivery, all in the same area. So think of it like an air traffic control system. This is a company called Wing. They just don't come in your community and set up. They work with you. How do you permit? How do you set up? How does this provide a service? Is the community ready? Have you had community engagement? A lot of those things we work with. We'll work with Canton. We're working with other communities where we peered our system with this platform, so it keeps track of where the drones are and where they're going to. But as a citizen, if you have mobility challenges, this is a 11-pound drone carrying 4 pounds with about a 30-minute delivery time on most things that you order. So I just wanted you to see what these drones look like that are getting approved by the FAA. These aren't the ones you buy off the shelf. These are commercial grade aviation approved systems. Doesn't mean they're coming to Canton. It just means you have the option to if you're prepared. But this is what it looks like. Never actually lands. Always stays aboard until it lands and charges. Okay. So I'm going to go through some of the assessment results and our recommendations. I'm not going to go into the detail that we did before, but I'll go skip through them. When we go through this process, we have a team that runs through multiple surveys and interviews and does an assessment of the city. We do have an executive summary, UAS readiness community, how it works, the assessment, and the different areas of that. We're going to touch on some of these. This is really taken out of the report. It's not the best for presentation, so I'll just highlight it because you will never be able to read this. But this engagement, we worked with 8 different departments. We worked with 12 different people within the city to understand how, if they use drones, do they have drones? Do they know where they can and can't fly? Do they have a Part 107 license? It was really interesting to find within the community how they're using drones and how they're using it in the cable group. We uncovered quite a bit of great things, that they have policies in place of how they fly drones within the community with the police department. And a lot of the areas that they would like to search and rescue. They talked about a tornado that came through and they couldn't tell if the generators were running in one of their data centers and wanted to get an assessment of that, and we're borrowing drones. We're seeing issues, again, neighboring cities. We had a problem with Romulus where the train derailment happened and they couldn't get their drone off the ground. They had a drone, they just couldn't get it off the ground because it was in controlled airspace, and they sat there for an hour. And they couldn't understand and get eyes on that. They waited for the media helicopter to fly them up there. So one of the things is just, it's not about promoting the drones, it's about being mobilized. And that's what we're trying to do here for Canton, is get to a point where you have the right tools, but make sure you stay compliant, safe, and understand the privacy issues. So we do have a framework. It was adopted by a advocacy group, AUVSI, and is a framework that is now used nationwide for federal, state, and local governments to make sure we're harmonizing communities with the federal government, because there can be some friction between those, because the FAA controls the airspace, communities control the takeoff and landing. So there's an area that we make sure that people understand how that works, because citizens might say, I don't want drones flying over our heads. That becomes an FAA issue. It's about where it takes off and lands, but these rules and regulations are changing, and it's our job as a company to keep the communities up to date on how that's playing out. And that's what we just talked about there. There's a whole framework for this. It is very complicated. And the way that we structure it for the community is we have foundational systems. Do you have a drone park? Are your kids learning to fly? Do you have a STEM program? There's going to be a lot of new jobs coming up here. If you do have Part 107 pilots, do they have licenses? Are they registering their drones? Do they have the systems in place? Does the community have the system in place? Are they keeping track of their drones? Are they getting tools to fly tactical beyond visual line of sight with different departments? How can they leverage them, and how do they stay compliant? How do they engage with the communities? There's so much there. And then people say, hey, we want package delivery or medical delivery. I want a burrito delivered. You just can't just click and make that happen. We've learned through experience. We are doing this all across the country, from North Dakota to California to Arlington, Texas last week, of how to integrate. We were in Phoenix and we worked on CVS for 8 months, and the community just didn't want to do it because they just didn't know how. So those are the opportunities that we're trying to make sure Canton is prepared for. So that's how we do the assessment. Here are the list of everyone that we met with. They did surveys, they did meetings. We really appreciate everyone's input to help build this out, because it's not about just one department. It's about making sure it's a cohesive message and usage of a platform. Again, examples in the report about the questions that were asked. I think there was about 40 different questions about initiatives, issues they may have had with drones. Do they have drones? And then we put Canton, which was, so we're working with 25 cities right now. In Michigan, we have about 18 in Conference of Western Wayne. Canton's doing pretty good. We put it at a level 1.5, a little bit higher, but there's maybe one a little bit higher than you so far. But at least they have a process for keeping track of their drones. They have Part 107 pilots. They do have a policy in place. So I'm proud of the Canton Township for the program that we're reaching in and learning about. They have good processes in place already. So you get thumbs up for that. But you do have 5 drones, 5 Part 107 commercial pilots. And what that means is when you have a pilot license to fly a drone, you can fly for money. And looks something like this. You should go get one if you have the chance. You get a $1,000 bonus at our company. But it allows you to fly for money, and that's what a drone pilot license allows. So that's good that they have that. And the police department has a pilot license, and there's about 500 federally registered drones in Canton Township. So think about that. There are 500 drones that have been registered with the FAA that they're paying $5 for. So there's a lot of drones flying in Canton that people don't probably realize. So we do have access to the FAA's Federal Registry of Drones. So there's a lot of activity here, whether you see it or not. Wow. So this is, I'm not going to go through each one of these, but this is how a lot of the drone departments a lot of the departments are using drones. I think the community cable TV department, I think they've been leading the way and even supporting. And this is where it's interesting. when you're mobilizing, sometimes they reach out to the cable department to help out within usage of drones, and which is great, but also they have their job of using it for the cable. Leisure and services own a drone. They use it monthly for facility inspection. They use it in municipal services, works with the cable group. The police department have 3 drones available, and again, using them at different levels, but they do have a couple Part 107 pilot as well. They do have their policy in place. And I think fire department is one that it was pretty interesting after I got off the call with them. They were fired up. They're like, how do we use drones? We'd love to have a drone with a heat sensor, so when we come on scene, we can see where the hot spots are, and how do we start to incorporate drones into our operational workflows. Yeah, I think they're the most excited about trying to figure out how to integrate drones. So we'll figure out that one. And then also with the police department, really investing in making them. And you can see, just so you know, state and local governments and cities are going to be the fastest growing segment in the United States, and the police department is the largest in the United States, and there's a lot of funding. There will be a presentation in Capitol Hill Thursday to push for more funding, and the FAA reauthorization should get approved for the next 5 years, which has a lot of funding coming through to support drone integration, even at the community level. So again, good to the community of Canton is taking this assessment to be prepared for all of these things coming down the line. And it's not just that, it's manufacturing. There are not enough drones being built in the United States, and a lot of funding is coming down to do that. And Michigan wants to position to capture those opportunities. So, sorry I'm capturing a lot of things. You tell me if you have any questions. I will keep going. Let's see. Assessment findings, I will skip some of these. Well, not. So there's one thing to get the city operating correctly and compliantly within controlled airspace, which you have. Will run and DTW overlaps into the city. So there's a way to make sure the community is flying correctly, but also how do you create opportunity to invite those manufacturers or advanced operations? And one of the areas we identified was along Michigan Ave there. We are working from M-City to Michigan Central and Detroit Aerotropolis to create a corridor for drone operations along Michigan Ave and the train lines to provide operations. So it's even Camp Grayling, we're working with them. Think of the Camp Grayling as an area where you test the drones and you crash them and you get the hours on the network, and then you move it to M-City for the next level of testing, and then start to connect and commercialize out in Michigan Central and start to bring that through here. We're recommending a drone park along that way, and we need a place for kids to learn how to fly drones. We're going to need more. We're hiring a bunch this summer to help fly down in Detroit, but that is going to be an expansion of our system. Kids are great drone pilots. They're good gamers. They're good pilots. Future state. So one of the things we'd like to see the city or township do is get more of a comprehensive drone policy, not just for public safety, but across. So great that we have public safety. Utilizing drones in various use cases. So these came out from maintenance and inspection, security. We do have one city of Charlotte uses our platform. We can detect drones. Drones have to broadcast their location. We have a geofence around their water supply. Every time a drone flies over the water supply, they pull up the cameras and see if it dropped anything in the water supply. So there's different ways that communities can use it. Even if they don't fly drones, they can detect them. I think drones as a first responder and different use cases for crash analysis or after a crash happens, put the drone in the air, take an image. There's a lot of use cases we'd like to see from that. Looking into Part 107 training. Initially, with the mutual aid here in the region, plus working with Camp Grayling potentially with the 500 drones they just purchased, where you can go and train up there and rent those drones. So I think there's a big one, ensure residents know where and how to fly and making sure they have a safe place to fly, but also transparency of what the community is doing with drones as well. So making sure that those systems are in place. a lot of this is in the report. A lot of those are in the recommendations. What we love Canton to see is we kind of put them in incremental options to move them in this UAS integration scale from a 1.5 to a 1.9 or 2.5. And this is just a scale that we use for the integration and efficiency of using those systems. Leveraging your existing Esri and GIS data, your land use, your zoning, integrate that into the airspace management system, almost create like a site selection tool for companies that are looking at Michigan. Do you have a Walmart? What's it look like? What's the demographic of the area within 5 miles? What does that look like? How will that affect the community? There's different pricing for that. Again, not all that, it's not all Airspace Link. It's about training fees, buying drones, getting Part 107 licenses, software to manage the systems, all the way up to sensor systems, detection. We have a lot of cities putting sensors on their city hall to understand where drones are flying within their community. So there's different levels of complexity that the city has that we have pretty detailed recommendations. I'm not going to go through these, but it talks about policy, making sure your drones are registered, different tools for authorization, and so on, and so on. I'm not going to go through these, but this is part of the report. They do have software right now, which is interesting that we've set up. We actually have drive analysis tools for Canton. Almost think about planning tools that they have access to that will tell them where you can and can't fly, how many people could be reached with certain types of drones. We call it a business analyst for drones. It allows you to sit down and have a conversation across the table from a business of how drones might be utilized. Routing systems, the park, making recommendations for a drone park, potentially combining that with the new fire station. That would be for internal training, but also potentially a location for residents to learn how to fly, just like tennis courts. You go there and learn how to fly, and then you get hours on your drone. Because when I usually ask a community, where's it safe for me to go learn to fly? If I ask someone from Canton, they said, where's the designated place to learn how to fly a drone? Most people don't know. And if they say the RC park, they don't get along. Drone pilots and RC plane people are very different, so that's a big thing to be aware of. That's just the way it is. And then we have individual recommendations for police. There's quite a few. Municipal services, cable and television. We have the thing to maintain their drones. We have a tool for creating advisories. So since we manage the airspace for the FAA, Canton has a tool today, right now, under trial that they can submit, and that will create almost, I don't want to say no-fly zone, it creates a advisory of there's something going on, be advised when you fly in this region. So they have a tool that goes out to all the pilots. And that's basically it. I'm not going to go into all the details. It's a pretty significant report. It does have ideal communities, what they look like. I will end. We have a lot of data in the system, and sometimes someone asked me a question about an hour before this presentation. John said, hey, how much would it save if we had drones flying from different vehicles and things like that? We were able to work it up in about a half hour. And again, after 5 years, these are some of the numbers we'd see. So think about today, we have vehicles, electric vehicles, autonomous vehicle, rideshare vehicle. We still have the same number of vehicles. It's still hard, still costs a lot to maintain the roads. Preventable accidents, if we had a drone delivery system like the one you saw, would be reduced about 150 of those, potentially. Again, we have to refine those numbers, and if it's fully, system is fully working, which it should have been on this slide. Population that could be served, that drones could have access into a community. It's about 70% of Canton would have access, and there's areas that might be tough just because of the way the buildings are and some potential sensitive sites. Be about 5,000 people supported that lack vehicles, so people with mobility challenges roughly would have access to things being delivered to them, like Meals on Wheels could be done through this, especially during COVID. There's a big thing. We're working with Beaumont Hospital and Henry Ford Health Systems. We've been flying drones with them right now. So about telehealth and using drones to do deliveries. We've been doing it for a few weeks, and we'll be doing it a lot more with a few other hospital networks, which is pretty neat. 13% decrease in pickup and delivery vehicles. That's probably the one, John, that we're looking at is what would be the decrease in traffic. We'd have to understand the traffic volumes in Canton and then which one's percent, which is usually 15% of those are deliveries like Uber Eats and stuff like that, and then 13% of that. So it gets up there. We're in Quito, Ecuador, and our goal is to reduce traffic by 1% on one of the routes. We're about halfway there, not even, quarter of the way there. About 100 flights per day that are happening in Ecuador. And then CO2 emissions and acres of forest. And then increase in retail and time savings. So when you're running to the store, to CVS to grab cold medicine, that half hour of sitting in traffic, that actually starts to add up significantly. And we have some models that we worked on with Virginia Tech and a few other colleges in different parts of the country. So
And this is just in Canton, the numbers you
that
just
was
gave.
those numbers is we isolate quickly. They need to be tuned. But they're probably in the vicinity based on other communities that we've worked with here. I think Detroit Aerotropolis is another. We kind of took the model that we used for Detroit Aerotropolis and set that into into Canton. So we might have to adjust a bit up or down, but it's pretty close.
Would that be on a yearly basis then? Like
Yeah, and that
10,000?
would be after 5 years, up and running, like systems, because you just don't turn on drones. It takes time to get there. So we'd say 5 years out of adoption, community engagement, it takes time, and that's what the study is showing right now.
Just to let the board know, so there's grants out there. We're applying to the MDOT Aeronautics Grant.
Okay,
Yes, so we looked at that and we've started filling things out. We had talked about that
okay.
before.
Let us know how we can help. We've won a few of those in the past.
Okay.
So.
Are there any other grants that we should be looking at for anything like this?
Yeah, so the SMART grant just came out last week. We've won one of those in North Dakota, and then the DOE grant we won in Texas for $1.5 million, and then we won $1.9 million in North Dakota for a SMART grant. That just rolled out. That again, a lot of those are communities that we've worked with and been able to get that up and running. So one was for medical delivery up in North Dakota, and the one in Texas is a food bank for underserved communities, or food desert. So we're running a food desert operation. It was in the news last week. It was neat. It was a cart rolled up and the drone flies, and that will be running on and off over the next 8 months. So,
Thank you.
and then drones as a first responder and getting programs up and running are pretty important. So yes, there's a lot of funding coming down, but you have to understand how to do it and apply.
So John or Gavin, do you want to add anything?
Just as Michael alluded to, we've already begun kind of putting a project description and a grant application together. Michael mentioned not going through all those steps, but they have essentially laid out the program for us, step level 1, 2, and 3. I was putting the description together, and I realized I was basically just summarizing the entire report, and so I kind of stopped because we have it already. So they've done a phenomenal job, positioned us really for the next step. So Gavin and I discussed the SMART grant today, so Gavin's been all over that one and looking at that for different programs as well. So we're ready. We're looking to apply. If this is something that the board is sees value in and wants us to move forward, it can definitely align with the initiatives that we have over the next few years, and really prepare Canton for the next kind of big wave of community development and economic development. But just really preparing us for what's to come.
Chief Chad, you had given an update. Why don't you want to give an update on the numbers, actually?
I can give you a quick update. We have 13 in the unit, the drone unit, 9 of which have actually taken the test and passed the 107.
Awesome.
We do have 2 mini drones. We call those mini drones. They need them for training. And that's what they're using those for. And then we have one that's more regular size that we've used on different operations. So, thank you.
Great. So Chief Chad or Chief Chris, do you want to talk about this public safety aspect and how it helps our community?
I can, most everyone in the room had, probably saw we had an issue last week on Thursday. And when you set up an operation, when you have a barricaded gunman, in that situation, a drone allows us to help with a safe way to do placement. We had a person that was actively in and outside of his home with a gun. And that's just a safe way to take a look, take a peek at what's going on there after we establish a safe perimeter. So it's just another way to disengage, and stay engaged with the situation. So that's just one little anecdotal evidence of what that can be used for.
Yeah, and on the fire side, I would say that we, looking outside the box, we currently, I'll give an example. We go down to the landfill down there where they're burning off methane probably 2 to 3 times a night, right? On a winter night, right? So we're responding down there with a $700,000 vehicle and then another $500,000 vehicle behind it, running licensed sirens. So from that point of view, we're reducing liability if we could send a drone up, knowing that it's most likely the burn off at the methane plant. Send a drone down there, take a look at it, and then we're not putting the public at risk by going licensed siren and putting our vehicles at risk, saving on the mileage of the vehicles. There's all kinds of positives for a drone usage in the fire service, and that's just one example that we've kind of come up with that we could use the drones for.
Anyone else, Victor or John, you want to talk about how it could help us in your areas?
I think when we met with them, we talked about how this will help Canton Township in mapping the entire township based on what we are hoping to do, particularly in the space of broadband mapping to see where the assets are and be able to constantly maintain those maps and keep them current. Instead of having somebody, driving all the time to figure out the current situation of things.
Thank you. John Zelinas, did you have anything with facilities?
I think he alluded to one of the topics that was going across my mind was roof inspections. I know that's a big one for us, just to make sure that we are current on our roof inspections, see if there's any penetrations or weak points. It sounds easy enough to walk them, but on certain days we have active rain coming through and you want to pinpoint in certain areas where it's leaking. This could be a critical asset for us too.
Or even the roads and flooding, right?
Yep, stormwater, yep, flooding and road projects that are open and they may not be accessible to foot traffic. You can get a little aerial of it too and take some progress pictures.
All right, thank you. Does the board have any questions or comments? Tanya?
Yeah, so I was just curious, you talked something about the privacy issues, like especially with the police department. There was something about vigilant platforms, so that was, I understand as Chief Boss just mentioned that, we are going to use it for incident, if something happens, like monitoring and things like that. But is there like especially with the police department, like how is the privacy of citizens, residents maintained? That's a quick question that I had.
Yeah, there's a couple parts to that. Even on the screen that I'm showing here, it actually has a transparency. You can't see the numbers, too small, but it keeps track of all the drones that are flown every day, hourly, and all the stats of how they're being used. That's one. The other one is they have policies in place, and then there's one of the drones here, which is in one of these slides here. It actually can blur out all of the properties that aren't on the device, never actually gets to a camera or back to the base of private properties. It has certain ways to do certain things. And then the community, it just depends on the use case. If they're using it for traffic analysis, it's okay. There was a case recently in Michigan with case law that just went through last week, which is over 8 months of drones. The best thing, the way it has to be presented is that communities have to have the right ordinances and policies in place for privacy, whether it would be someone with a camera or someone without. So that is the way that we've been handling privacy, is that, and then transparency has been a big thing. But drones as a first responder has de-escalated so many incidents right now that that's why it's probably the fastest growing segment. It's saving lives all over the place. So that's outweighing the some of the privacy.
So I had a question for Chief Ma. Like you mentioned the incident last week that was one of the situations. What other scenarios that drones are used in the police department?
Immediately, it's missing persons, children with autism. As something that we're really concerned about. You know, we'll fire up the police and fire at the same time to respond to that. They'll use their lights, you know, the urgency of finding a child that's missing, a dementia patient, elderly, suicidal, missing people. The sense of urgency is really increased in this agency. So having a drone, having some of the technology attached to the drone to find people in the woods and whatnot near water is critical for their safety.
Thank you.
Stephen?
Thanks for the presentation, and I look forward to the next steps. I think it's fascinating. Couple questions for you. To start, you talked about the City of Ontario, and you mentioned 60 personnel. How does that relate to adding personnel? So in other words, I'm assuming they didn't add 60 people, they just trained existing people. And what percentage of their time is now based on doing the flying of the drones?
Yeah, and I'll answer that in a couple ways because each community we work with is slightly different. For them, they hired Sergeant Woolweaver. He actually, they didn't hire him. They promoted him into a position to head up a drone program. And he just became super passionate about it. And he started buying drones and probably doing things illegally. That's where we got him under control. And then he said, how are we going to do this? He had 5 officers. He was going to outsource it to begin with. So we hired a company called Flying Lion that went under, and they provided training and services and actually flew the drones at the beginning while the officers watched. And they didn't even they could do their jobs, and they flew the drones for them. But over time, I think the officers wanted to fly them, and then they started training, and all of a sudden they went from 5 to 10 to 20 to 40. And in being sworn, so some of these were not sworn officers, and then the sworn officers were more powerful because they had better situational awareness, so they started putting them at the helm of the device. And again, that many doesn't mean they're all at once. They rotate, night shift, so it's making sure that there's pilots available when needed. And again, some of these are just in the trunk of the car as they need it. So hopefully that helps.
Do you assign a cost or and do an analysis on the additional cost to a community? Not, of course, the equipment and all that and licensing and things, but just personnel cost.
We can. I don't think we have, depending, because some communities, it really doesn't add much of a cost other than the drone. And the training's $150 to take the test. There's cost, but it's
there's probably cost savings, as you said, as well.
That's the other way around too.
But there is
driving out to a scene if you can just sit there at your desk and even see what's going on.
I wasn't sure if you added like at least one coordinator or something like that, or
a UAS program manager is awesome if the city can put that person in place, and that can be very helpful, and that's what they have at Ontario.
You mentioned Canton having 500 licensed drones. On the average day, can you imagine how many of those are in the air?
Yeah, so I can show it live. I can pull up City of Ontario. It's about 20 flights per day on average. Again, about the same size, but they are near an airport, so you can't fly in certain areas. Detroit, we're about 25, 30 per day on average of drones flying around. It's neat to watch, but they didn't know it until it's a sensor we plugged in on the roof, and away it goes.
And those are ones that can be licensed. They're not toys or things like that.
Above a half a pound.
Above a half a pound.
As of March 16th of this year, all drones in the United States have to broadcast their location under remote ID. So that has been 3 years in the making. That's why regulations are changing. That is a new regulation. What's going to happen next? That's going to fall on public safety at some point for enforcement. Today, the FAA enforces it. but it's getting a little bit too much going on.
Oh,
for them
that
to
was going to be
handle.
my next question. How is that enforced today, and is it really enforced, or?
Well, right now, it is starting to roll that way, and I've heard that there is already funding in Homeland Security that will support communities. So again, another funding mechanism if you know how to access those funds.
And then last question, the mapping that you do of the community, are the drones smart drones and such that they can absorb, upload your mapping so they know these things, or is it upon the driver?
All of that. It
Okay.
depends on the level. If it's a recreational play, it has no geofencing. If it's the DGI, it actually has a geofence where the drone will stop. The
Okay.
more high-end one. And then once you get into the air traffic control, like the drone delivery, then we're air traffic controlling. We have to know where the emergency landing zones are. Like Canton, we'd have to run a full analysis of what would be good fields to land in an emergency. That all has to be, again, the FAA has one of the highest safety standards in the world. We are held to that same level on their behalf. And so when we actually turn on a community, it means we've, at a higher level of authorization, we have to do a ton. That's what we're doing in Detroit. That's why it's millions of dollars in the system we're installing there, because it has full radar and communication networks dedicated to drones.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good questions. Thank you, everyone.
Diane?
Just a real quick comment, great presentation. And I do understand you have to crawl before you walk. Because I
Yes,
can see in
please.
5 years, great things, from medication being delivered, so fewer folks on the road, to being able, for the police and fire to be able to monitor things, and even safety. So thank you very much. And I know it's going to be a long process, and educating our residents as well. So
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Else? So basically, I mean, we've heard a lot of things tonight, shorten response times, enhance road safety for first responders, expand economic development opportunities, and drop off options for residents. And actually, thanks for doing those calculations. I know they were last minute, but we came up with them in the staff meeting today, like taking cars and trucks off the road, which improves our infrastructure. We don't have as many cars on the road, so our infrastructure will last longer. Reducing CO2 emissions, because you have battery operated versus putting more trucks on, or fire trucks or police cars to go find something instead of using the drones.
11 pounds, or a 5-pound drone.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Versus a 3 to 10 ton vehicle, so.
So does the board okay with us going ahead, starting to apply for funding for this? Basically, with the help of, Michael's company? Because basically, I think we've already started, just kind of looking at what's out there, but it sounds like, John, that we should use our team here, because they have the ways to get this funding to help us out.
Yeah, they've certainly set us up with the assessment. So we've got everything we need, step by step, kind of moving forward. It's all been charted out for us, so.
And you actually even mentioned some more avenues.
Yeah.
Okay,
They're popping up. There was one opened up for only a week last week here in Michigan. And again, our customers, we usually take care of them pretty quick, but it can be overwhelming. But they're coming up and down right now, so.
Yeah, if you could help us with that, that would be
Absolutely.
great. Thank you.
Yep.
So everyone okay with that? It's going ahead with the funding? All right, great. Thank you very much for the presentation.
You're
I know,
welcome.
and how'd the soccer game go? I know you had to get to
Oh,
the
the
soccer
track
game.
and track and field. My son just graduated, so they had senior night last time.
Oh.
So I apologize, and he didn't tell me until. Oh yeah, you're supposed to walk on the field with me.
I know how that
So,
is.
Yeah.
So do I.
Yes, yes. No, thank you very much.
yeah, thank
So
you.
yeah, please, we'll be in contact with you for these other funding sources too.
Okay. Yes.
We're
let's do that.
excited. Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have some resolutions to read. So we'll start with the resolution declaring May Lupus Awareness Month in Canton Township. And Tanya is going to read that.
A resolution of the Board of Trustees, Charter Township of Canton, Michigan, resolution declaring May Lupus Awareness Month in Canton Township, whereas lupus is an unpredictable and misunderstood autoimmune disease that can cause severe damage to the tissue and organs in the body and in some cases death, whereas more than 5 million people worldwide suffer the devastating effects of this cruel and mysterious disease, and each year over 100,000 young women, men, and children around the world are newly diagnosed with lupus, the great majority of whom are women of childbearing age. Whereas medical research efforts into lupus and the discovery of safer, more effective treatments for lupus patients are underfunded in comparison with the diseases of comparable magnitude and severity, whereas many physicians worldwide are unaware of symptoms and health effects of lupus, causing people with lupus to suffer for many years before they obtain a correct diagnosis and medical treatment, whereas there is deep unmet need worldwide to educate and support individuals and families affected by lupus, and whereas there is an urgent need to increase awareness in communities worldwide of the debilitating impact of lupus, now therefore be it resolved, the Board of Trustees of the Charter Township of Canton does hereby proclaim the month of May as Lupus Awareness Month in Canton Township and join lupus organizations in the call for increases in public and private sector funding for medical research on lupus, targeted education programs for health professionals, patients, and the public, and recognition of lupus as a significant public health issue.
Support.
Motion made by Trustee Ganguly and supported by Trustee Borninski. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. All right, thank you. Our next resolution, we will recognize Police Officer Brian Sostak. Please come to the front. And, of course, K-9 Ragnar. We'll read them together. Please come on up. Yes, so Treasurer Slavens is going to read Brian Sostak's.
All righty. Resolution recognizing the retirement of Police Officer Brian Chostek. Whereas the Canton Police Department recognizes the importance of its employees, whereas Brian Chostek was hired as Canton Township Police Officer in 1999, whereas Brian served as patrol officer on the midnight shift for his entire career, responding to calls for service, providing traffic enforcement, conducting criminal investigation, and responding to emergency situations throughout the community. Whereas the addition to his patrol duties, Brian simultaneously served on several of the department's special units for over 20 years, including Honor Guard and Explorer Unit. Whereas for the past 20 years, Brian committed himself to the department's K-9 unit, working as a K-9 handler with his respective partner, Pancho, Haas, and Ragnar. Whereas Brian selflessly dedicated his personal professional time to train and care for his K-9 partners, whereas Brian received numerous department awards and citations throughout his career, including Officer of the Year in 2020, whereas Brian has maintained the highest level of professionalism in every aspect of his service with the Canton for the past 25 years. Resolved, the Board of Trustees of Charter Township of Canton is appreciative to the commitment and excellent service as demonstrated by Police Officer Brian Chostak. Further resolved, the Board of Trustees of the Charter Township of Canton does hereby recognize Brian Chostak for his commendable contribution to the Canton community and Canton Police Department.
Support.
Motion made by Treasurer Slavens, supported by Trustee Snyderman. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you. Not yet. Come on up. Now we're going to read a resolution recognizing the retirement of Police K-9 Ragnar. Trustee Borninski.
Resolution of Board of Trustees, Charter Township of Canton, Michigan. Resolution recognizing the retirement of Police K-9 Ragnar. Whereas the Canton Police Department recognizes the importance of its K-9 unit. Whereas in 2019, Ragnar partnered with Officer Brian Shostak and started his career in law enforcement with the Canton Police Department. Whereas Ragnar and his partner attended weekly training classes and were required to certify biannually with the National Association of Professional Canine Handlers. Whereas for 5 years, Ragnar and his partner worked full-time on patrol, responding to calls for service, making traffic stops, performing searches, and tracking individuals. Whereas Ragnar and his partner participated in numerous community special events, demonstrating their skills and abilities as a canine team. Whereas Ragnar retired from the Canton Police Department but continues to reside with his partner, retired Officer Brian Shostak. Resolved, the Board of Trustees of the Charter Township of Canton is appreciative of the commitment to excellent service as demonstrated by Canine Ragnar. Further resolved, the Board of Trustees of the Charter Township of Canton, does hereby recognize Canine Ragnar for his commendable contribution to the Canton community and the Canton Police Department.
Support?
Motion made by Trustee Borninski, supported by Trustee Snyderman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I don't hear any oppositions, right? No. Thank you. Congratulations. Oh, please come to the front of the room. We're not done with you yet. Don't leave the room. Okay. Patty, please come forward. Officer Patricia Esselink. Summer Foster.
Resolution recognizing the retirement of Police Officer Patricia Esselink. Whereas the Canton Police Department recognizes the importance of its employees, whereas Patricia Esselink was hired as a Canton Township police officer in 2001, whereas Patricia served as a patrol officer responding to calls for service, providing traffic enforcement, conducting criminal investigations, and responding to emergency situations throughout the community. Whereas in addition to her patrol duties, Patricia simultaneously served on several of the department's special units, including Team, TEAM, Explorer Unit, Bicycle Unit, and Rapid Response Unit. Whereas in 2013, Patricia moved into the Detective Bureau and worked as an investigator for 2 years before transferring into the position of Community Relations Officer. Whereas Patricia spent the last 9 years of her career building an expansive community relations program, developing a wide variety of educational events and resources for residents of all ages. Whereas Patricia received numerous department awards and citations throughout her career, including Officer of the Year in 2016. Whereas Patricia has maintained the highest level of professionalism in every aspect of her service with Canton for the last 23 years. Resolved, the Board of Trustees of the Charter Township of Canton is appreciative of the commitment to excellent service as demonstrated by Police Officer Patricia Esselink. Further resolved, the Board of Trustees of the Charter Township of Canton does hereby recognize Patricia Esselink for her commendable contribution to the Canton community and the Canton Police Department.
Support?
Motion made by Trustee Foster, supported by Trustee Snyderman and Treasurer Slavens.
If we vote no, does that mean she can't go?
That's right.
Hearing the same.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. So would you please come to the front? Well,
Congratulations. So hard to, we were gonna miss you. Thank you for everything. I told William you were leaving and he was like, no. But I wish you the best. Thank you for everything. Thank you. Oh, we're standing back here? Okay.
Want the chairs back so we can.
Tighten it up, be a team. Tighten it up, tighten it up. Oh, just pull the chairs out. Come on up, come on, guys. There we go. Ragnar too?
Oh, he can come up here with us.
Yeah, sure. Uh-huh. I didn't think you'd do that.
Oh, very good.
You guys want to shake them hands?
Sure. Aw.
Uh-oh, did we knock them over? Good job, that was really nice. Wendy, we also had a retirement in finance. Not you, no. Wendy, no. Want to talk about who retired from finance?
Sure. Carolyn Cox, our budget manager. She'd been with the township for at least 20 years, maybe 25 years, but she finally decided, she was ready for the next step, the next chapter, to spend some more time with her family. And so she's a big loss. She helped a lot of the different departments with their grants and their budgets, and she was pretty integral. I mean, she didn't have the typical accountant's personality. She was very helpful and very open to just really going that above and beyond for all the departments. So she's a big loss for our team and the accounting department. But we're moving forward, and we have some interviews coming up with some pretty qualified candidates. So we're excited for what's coming up next in the future as well. So we will miss her, but we wish her well.
Well, have her come back for recognition if she will.
I guarantee you she will not be here.
She will not, okay, so we will write something and
She
give
is
it to her.
As you've noticed for budget presentation, she is not comfortable with a lot of attention on herself, so she will not be, will not be coming for that.
Well, we'll write her something.
Perfect, that would be great.
Okay, thank you. Great, thanks. Next on the agenda, we have the consent calendar. So now that Clerk Seegers is back, do we stay? Treasurer
Madam
Slavens? or do
Supervisor,
we-
I move that the board approve the consent calendar as presented. Item C1, consider approval of annual maintenance and technical support agreement for CityWorks Asset Management Software. Item C2, request renewal of Dell storage server support agreement.
Motion made by Clerk Seegers, supported by Treasurer Slavens. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Now we go into the general calendar. G1, consider approval of the purchase of one 2024 Ford F-150 for facility services.
Madam Supervisor, I move to approve the purchase of one 2024 Ford F-150 from Gorno Ford at 22025 Allen Road, Woodhaven, Michigan, 48183, via the My Deal contract number 4WDL-0073A in the amount of $47,059. Funding for this vehicle will come from the 101-265.970_0040 capital outlay vehicles account.
Support.
Motion made by Clerk Seegers, supported by Treasurer Slavens. Facility Services has a 2013 Chevy Tahoe that is due for replacement. Currently, this vehicle meets 3 of the 4 criteria according to the fleet replacement policy as listed. It is 11 years old with 110,000 miles and has rust on the body and frame. Facility Services has determined that a truck would better serve the needs of the department. If approved by the board, Facilities will purchase a 2024 Ford F-150 as a replacement to the 2013 Chevy Tahoe. The township will utilize the MI-Deal contract number as listed, pricing received from Gorno Ford. The vehicle that is proposed to be purchased has been evaluated for alternative fueling sources, including electric. It should be noted that this vehicle will not be a hybrid or electric model due to the limited availability of fully electric vehicles or hybrid vehicles at this time. So John, would you like to talk about, I think there's a question about, are we trading the one in that we have, the older one?
The older one, I don't know if we're going to be trading in or just doing the sell, the auction for it. I don't think there's a lot of service needs for the township and a Tahoe. One of the reasons this is benefiting the facilities department is this one's used for our overnight cleaning staff for each outbuilding. So when they're throwing the dirty bags of trash into the back bed of the pickup, I think it's designed more beneficial for us. We took on the Tahoe as a loaner, I think it's approximately 1 year ago, just due to the limited availability on vehicles for us. So it served its purpose with us. I think the F-150 is going to be a better suit for our township-wide cleaning endeavors.
All right, thanks. Any questions from the board? Oh, Kate?
Yeah, I noticed something about the lead time on that. Do you want to chat about that?
Yeah, I think we've been a year without it already, so it's not super critical. It's something that we budgeted for, and it came under our budget item. I know that we wanted to get this order in with the full anticipation of it probably taking quite some time. So we're prepared for that, and we also have alternative vehicles now that it's nicer out and it's staying lighter. We do have some use of UTV vehicles. So if we're riding somewhere on campus, we have a bed that we can throw trash in as well for that one. So we're prepared for the long haul. So we're just excited when it gets here.
Yeah, it looks like on the purchase order, or not on the purchase order, on the quote, it says 30 weeks. So that's quite a while.
Sure.
So good that you're prepared. And again, this is probably one of the reasons that we're going ahead right now, because the lead time is so long.
And it's quite a bit longer for a hybrid or an EV as well. So we've looked at all the options.
Any other questions? Michael?
I have a question. Why did we buy this under this MI-Deal contract number and not a different contract number?
That's a good question. I'll have to talk with Kevin Clark and Fleet why he used that one. Yeah, I'd have to get back to you after speaking with Kevin.
Any other questions? Comments? So all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item G2, consider award of design for the sidewalk gap project to Fishbeck.
Madam Supervisor, I move to approve the budget amendment listed above and to issue a purchase order in the amount of $241,500 to Fishbeck to perform design services for the sidewalk gap project.
Support.
Motion made by Clerk Seegers, supported by Trustee Borninski. Engineering Services is requesting to issue a purchase order to Fishbeck in the amount of $241,500 for the required design work related to installing sidewalks in various gaps within the township. This includes a total fee of $210,000 for design and permitting, contractor selection, topographic survey and easement exhibits, and construction staking, plus a 15% contingency. So John Zelinas, would you like to comment on this?
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. Yeah, this is exciting for all of us. I know the engineering team has made a pretty good push to get this first phase out. It should be known that this is one phase that's going out for bid and design. On the back end, they're working on the next 2 or 3 at the current time. I do know that they're focusing on the schools first primarily, and then the next focus, we have some at Hoban, the Ford and Ridge, ZB West, Liberty Middle School. So we are targeting those school systems first. So they're going out for this design, and hopefully shortly after we'll have another bid out for the next wave of design.
Any questions or comments? Stephen?
I was just going to comment that it's exciting that we're finally getting started. I think we've been talking about this for 2 years when we first met with the schools, and I'm looking forward to seeing the improved walkability of our schools and our community, and as well the utilization of the extra funding that this board provided, and also our state and our state legislators. So.
Kate?
All right. Yeah, I echo what Stephen said, and I just also wanted to thank Director Norwood, who's not here tonight, because I had a couple questions this afternoon, and he got the information that I needed for me. Thank you.
I had a quick question, John. I probably should have sent you an email. I left a message. So it says here that we had 3 bids, and did we follow any sort of, like we do the responsible contracting thing? I know we have worked with Fishback in the past, but did we do anything like that for this project?
Right, so for this project, we're just going out for design.
Okay.
Fishback will work with us when they go out for construction to have responsible contracting worked into all the contracts for the physical construction work.
Yeah, and I agree with Stephen, and I think probably the entire township board agrees that we are doing this around the schools, and it has been a while that we were planning this, and it would be good to have more walkability for our township school kids.
Thank you.
Summer?
Like everyone else, I'm excited that we are starting to fill these sidewalk gaps. I think over the years, we've heard from a number of parents that have been concerned about safety issues as their kids are walking to school. And so I'm excited that we're getting this done, and I'm really grateful for the partners in the legislature who provided some of the funding to help us with these gaps.
And as it says, there's going to be, this consists of 24 locations around the schools totaling 17,900 linear feet of sidewalk. So that's pretty substantial. Great. Michael?
And this is the MEDC money, this is the $700,000 that was secured from Senator Polhanke, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so
Correct.
this is just setting aside $241,000 for permitting, design, acquisition of, I think, easements and things like that, it looked like.
Right-of-ways, easements, correct, yes.
Okay.
We had I think we had a session on it not too long ago, so there is a packet on it if you want to see it, all the details. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item G3, consider approval of a purchase order to M1 Construction for the replacement of ceiling tiles at Fire 1.
Madam Supervisor, I move to approve the contract and purchase order to M1 Construction Group, 32553 Schoolcraft Road, Livonia, Michigan, 48150, in the amount of $17,883, which includes a 15% contingency of $2,333 for the Fire 1 ceiling tile installation.
Support.
Motion made by Clerk Seeger, supported by Treasurer Slavens. In 2019, the Board of Trustees adopted a capital improvement plan, and subsequently, the township issued capital improvement bonds to fund the CIP. The CIP included Fire Station 1 ceiling replacement as they are original to the building. Over time, the ceiling pads have become discolored, and the ceiling grid is shifted, creating a potential hazard. This project is to replace the west side living quarters of the building, as the east side was completed earlier this year using the proper bidding policy. John, do you want to answer to this?
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. Nothing much to add here. We can say that M1 Construction has been doing a really well job. We did anticipate this to be a lot higher, so we worked with them to complete one side, and now moving on to the west, which wasn't originally in the scope. We did have the dollars remaining in the CIP project, and we did notice that the grids and the pads were showing a lot of wear and tear from being original, so we took the advantage of completing the entire fire station.
Great. Any questions or comments? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item G4, consider approval of a purchase order to Michigan Cat for removal and replacement of public safety and administration building generators.
Madam Supervisor, I move to approve the contract and purchase order to Michigan Cat 7700 Caterpillar Drive, Grand Rapids, Michigan 49548 in the amount of $187,000, which includes a contingency of $16,633 for the replacement of the public safety generator, and to approve the contract and purchase order to Michigan Cat at still 7700 Caterpillar Drive, Grand Rapids, Michigan 49548 in the amount of $127,769, which includes a 10% contingency of $11,615, and to repurpose $27,769 of capital budget from the rooftop units for the replacement of the administration building generator.
Support.
Motion made by Clerk Seeger, supported by Trustee Snyderman. Beginning in 2024, the Board of Trustees adopted a new capital improvement plan, which included the replacement of the public safety generator. Additionally, MSD budgeted for the administration building generator to be replaced in 2024 as well. Both generators are over 25 years of age, which has surpassed its recommended lifespan for life safety and emergency backup equipment. So Deputy John, do you want to add this one?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Supervisor. Just a couple quick notes. Thank you to both Chief Chad and Chief Stockline here and Victor for their support during this process as it affects all the critical infrastructure for telecommunications and life safety equipment. We did indicate on here that is roughly 25 years of life. That's the furthest back of documentation that we had on those. By looking at serial and VIN numbers, it's probably closer to 28 to 30 years of life on those. We did partner a couple years ago with Michigan Cat to do preventative maintenance twice a year on our generators, just because of the life and the critical nature of those ones. So they've been a trusted partner with us over the last couple of years, and they've been working with the township for quite some time. Also, Michigan Cat is going to provide with us a telecommunications software for the generators. So we'll be able to get email and text notifications on any type of service that might be coming up or any failures, just to be a little bit more proactive on these as well. So those are just a couple quick things that I wanted to note on the generators, and appreciate your time.
I think one of the questions also, what do we do with the old generators?
So we did ask about the old generators, and there's not much they'll do. They are going to, they're doing a full service install, removal, replacement for us, so that's included in the price. And we will have IBEW electricians on the job as well, so we'll have our union team here. But nothing as far as credit back. We did get a percentage off for giving the generators back. I believe it was 24% reduction in the cost. So there's some perks to it. There's not as much as we really wanted to, but of a 30-year-old generator that's not extremely reliable, I think that's the best case scenario for us.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Okay, great, thank you. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item G5, consider first reading of amendments to Appendix A, zoning of the Code of Ordinances to add provisions for electric vehicle infrastructure.
Madam Supervisor, I move to introduce and hold the first reading of the proposed amendments to Appendix A, zoning of the Code of Ordinances of the Charter Township of Canton as provided in the attached ordinance, which amends Article 4, off-street parking and loading requirements by adding Sections 4.03, electric vehicle infrastructure, and amends Article 17, C3, regional commercial district, Article 18, C4, interchange service district, Article 22, LI, light industrial district, and Article 23, GI, general industrial district, to include land use provisions for retail electric vehicle charging as a principal use.
Support.
Motion made by Clerk Seeger, supported by Trustee Snyderman. Canton Township continues to see an increase in demand to install EV charging stations, especially at commercial and industrial sites. As the number and capacity of EV chargers increase, it is appropriate to adopt standards in the zoning ordinance that specifically address EV charging stations. Although the zoning ordinance does not explicitly address EV charging stations, the charging station applications approved so far have been approved using general standards of the zoning ordinance for setbacks, transformer equipment screening, and accessory uses. The proposed ordinance acknowledges some existing administration of the zoning ordinance regarding approval of EV charging infrastructure, as well as provides for additional provisions. So Patrick, I know you worked on this. Do you have anything to say?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. our team in the planning division had worked for quite a while on the draft ordinance, looking at a lot of different communities in the state of Michigan and nationwide to find some best practices in terms of not only what communities are using that they're adopting today, but also communities that have adopted standards many years ago that have withstood the test of time. So we've done a balance of both and come up with an ordinance that we've proposed to locate mostly in the parking part of the zoning ordinance. So where cars are parked, there's also going to be electric vehicle standards embedded in those standards. So they'll be relatively easy to find when people are looking at parking standards. This will go hand in glove with those. And many ordinances that we've seen also have their electric vehicle standards in their parking standards of their zoning ordinance. So I'll stop there and I'm happy to answer any questions about the ordinance.
Thanks, Deputy John. I think one of the questions asked was, what are our plans? If you want to just talk about what we're doing right now for the infrastructure, what we've been looking at.
Sure. Currently, we've had an RFP out for EV partners throughout the township wide, identifying the more highly used areas from our partners with Manic Smith Group, who did a survey for us through township. We are looking at Administration Building, Summit on the Park, Fellows Creek, Heritage Park. We're going to partner with the library as well. Obviously, that's a separate entity, but they do want to try to tap into our resources that we're using. So we're with a couple companies right now that we're working on, hopefully to get a level 3 in as well, which will be a huge demand closest to the highway. And then we're going to partner with another company for some level 2s. Fire Station 2 would probably be the most immediate one since it's already plumbed and ready to go for a station. So it's been good working with those companies. We've learned a lot. We've also did a secondary phase study with PBA, their electrical engineering company, to tell us our capacity at each facility. So we kind of can plan for the short term, knowing what the long-term goal is as well.
And then basically out there commercially, IKEA is going to be installing level 3 because they're close to the highway. We've seen with the Top Golf that they're proposing level 3s. We're also working with Meyer to see if they would do the level 3s like they're using throughout the state. They're using Meyer, but they're saying right now it's too far from 275, so we're kind of showing them that the Ford Road corridor actually extends past a mile all the way, so we're working with them also. And I think some others are also coming to us to work. So we've got a lot in the pipeline, especially even prepping for it. Any questions or comments? Tanya?
Yeah, first of all, I wanted to thank Patrick for answering all my questions regarding this ordinance, because I think this is a good standard to have for any new construction that we are having. And based on the future of vehicles, the automotive industry. I have a question for John. You talked about the RFP. Do we have like a timeline on when these things will be installed in our community parking areas?
Yeah, we do have probably, it's once we narrow it down to a specific vendor, Fire Station 2 will be the first, and I think equipment is roughly 8 weeks. And that one, the infrastructure is already there, so that cuts down quite a bit of work for us. That would be our first one. I think Fellows Creek Golf Course will be our next target for the level 3. We have narrowed it down to a partner there as well, and I think we're getting pretty good service to that one and a good deal with that partner. So the first one in ground could be 8 to 10 weeks if we solidify the deal within the next week or so.
Thank you.
Summer? Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I should have talked to you about the Planning Commission.
Sorry, my mic was not on.
To start over.
Thank you. And echo what Trustee Kanguli said, but yeah, I'm just glad that we're finally get a chance to vote on this. Sorry.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. All right, all those in favor of the first reading, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you.
Is,
There's a second part to them.
Is there a second part?
second, did
You
you
read
include
both
the
motions,
second
right?
reading, Michael, in the motion?
There is no legal requirement to schedule a second read, so I don't ever read those motions because it's superfluous and binding and unnecessary.
But they're fun. No, thank you.
Someone else wants to make the motion, by all means.
All right, thank you. Item G6, consider Planned Development District for Independent Living Alliance.
Madam Supervisor, I move that the board adopt the following resolution for the approval of the Planned Development District for Independent Living Alliance, ILA, whereas project sponsor has requested approval of the Planned Development District for Independent Living Alliance located at the southeast corner of Cherry Hill Road and Napier Road at 51333 Cherry Hill Road, and whereas Planning Commission reviewed the Planned Development Plan and Planned Development Agreement and voted 8-0 to recommend approval of the request with conditions as the request meets the criteria for planned development and results in a definite benefit to the community. Now therefore be it resolved, the Board of Trustees of the Charter Township of Canton, Michigan does hereby approve the Independent Living Alliance Planned Development District and Planned Application Number 074-PDM-8125 on the subject tax parcel number 074-99-0010-704 at 51333 Cherry Hill Road as provided in the Plan Development Agreement and Plan documents, including the proposed modifications from the zoning ordinance subject to all state, county, and township requirements, subject to the following conditions. 1, to the PDD agreement be satisfactorily reviewed by Township Legal Counsel prior to execution and recording. And 2, coordination with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers regarding stormwater management and coordination with the applicant and Wayne County to exceed Canton stormwater standards wherever feasible at the time of site plan review.
Support.
Motion made by Clerk Seeger, supported by Trustee Foster. The applicant proposes to construct an intentional residential community for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities at 51333 Cherry Hill Road, which is located at the southeast corner of Cherry Hill Road and Napier Road. The proposed intentional community use consists of 40 units within one building on 4.23 acres. The residential units will consist of 31 bedroom units and 10 two-bedroom units, which will each have a kitchen. The building will also include multi-purpose rooms, a dining room, a fitness room, a meeting room, and administrative support area. Outdoor amenities are located on the south rear side of the building and include bocce courts, a walking path, and outdoor eating areas. The Cherry Hill Village Overlay District requires all projects to be treated as a planned development. Each planned development district is required to demonstrate definite benefits to the community. The proposed definite benefit of the site includes providing a unique housing option for the area and preserving more open space than is required by a PD. At its meeting on April 1st, 2024, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the PDD subject to conditions. Deputy John, do you want to add to that?
Nothing further to add. Patrick and myself are happy to answer questions.
Okay, I believe this went before the summer. Do you want to add to the Planning Commission notes?
Nothing to add, thank you.
Okay, questions from the board? Oh, Stephen?
Thank you. I think I've been looking forward to this coming before the board. I think it's a great idea for our community. I think it's a great place for it in Cherry Hill Village, especially with the programming that the township has and is going to have down there for families that need such services. But I do have a couple of questions. Patrick, I was hoping you could answer. I saw a lot of discussion about water in the Planning Commission. Can you comment on the water, first of all?
Sure, definitely. And also to your first comment, we had met with the applicants over 2 years ago.
Can you get a little closer to the mic?
Sure.
Thanks.
I hope, does that?
Better, thank you.
Thank you. To the first point, we had met with the applicants over 2 years ago to talk about where in the community a facility like this could go. And I think we literally looked at everywhere in the community of all four corners. And throughout the process, we had encouraged the applicants to look at Cherry Hill Village for a number of reasons, for the area being walkable, access to amenities and programming, and just a good fit short and long term. So we were glad to see when a property that was suitable became available for the proposed use. For the Planning Commission meeting, there was a lot of discussion from the neighbors in River's Edge about stormwater management, and not the least of which are the concerns from the flooding last August. So anything that happens nearby from a development standpoint is going to draw the attention of neighbors, and rightfully so, because with more development and there's changes in impervious surfaces and land patterns, there's always concern from neighbors, especially when there are existing conditions like stormwater management. And so there is some engineering that has taken place on the plans. There's a stormwater pond shown on the south side of the parcel, which is adjacent to the drain. So the proposal would be for the stormwater from the site to go to that pond. The pond would hold it and then release it into the drain through a controlled release. And the applicants are here, and I believe the applicants have their engineer present this evening to answer any technical questions regarding the engineering. And so during the Planning Commission meeting, resident service advocate Emma Kramer gave us a great assist by letting us know of some current ongoings with the Army Corps of Engineers. And there are efforts ongoing with the Corps of Engineers with looking at the many areas of the community, not just this specific area of what's going on with the stormwater and the drains and the waterways. So that effort is ongoing, and I don't know the exact timetable on it, but it's occurring concurrently with the development application before us. So the Planning Commission made a recommendation of approval and adopted a condition in its motion recommending a full and extensive review by the Army Corps of Engineers, as well as additional oversight by Wayne County. And in reviewing that condition, we had modified it slightly to note that instead of having a requirement, because we don't necessarily know the timetable of the Army Corps of Engineers with this development, our proposed condition is coordination with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers regarding stormwater management and coordination with the applicant and Wayne County to exceed county stormwater standards wherever feasible at the time of site plan review. So at the time of site plan review, that will be, I'm not sure if it'll be a matter of months of when we go through that process, but we'll be farther through the process, hopefully with the Army Corps of Engineers. And also at that point, we'll have more detailed engineering from the applicant. At that time, within that engineering, if there's an opportunity to exceed any county standards, we'll work with the applicant as well as the Township Engineering Division in Wayne County to see if there's any way to possibly exceed those standards on the plan. It doesn't necessarily mean that they will exceed county standards, but we want to take a closer look during that process to see if that opportunity is there.
Okay, that kind of answers the citizen comment that came up earlier about exceeding standards. And by that, we mean do better than the standard in some cases, right? Yeah. Okay, and then the other question I have, and I don't know if it's for you or the applicants to answer, but I was looking at so the purchase agreement and how that works, and the efforts to raise the funds for purchasing the land itself. Can you comment on that, or can the applicant come to the podium to comment on any of that?
Yeah, I'll defer to the applicant on that if you'd like to come to.
Yeah, please.
My name's Dave Ebner with a board member for ILA. And currently we have the property under contract for $550,000 to be closed on or before August 18th. And the reason we entered into that agreement about a year ago is we needed to go through the process of the rezoning and things of the nature that we hope to get completed today. As far as fundraising goes, we've raised probably 60% of the money to get that taken care of. We're also working with the financial institutions to handle the rest of it. So as long as we get the approvals we need and the site plan approval, we will be closing on the property.
Thanks, Dave.
Anything else?
Kate?
Yes, so there's been a lot of talk about stormwater tonight, and I understand there's a pond, a retention pond that will be on the backside of the building. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So I'm not sure if this is a concern or not, but I thought about it. And by the way, I do think the project is a good one and definitely fulfills a need in our community. Just wondering if there are any safety concerns for the residents with that pond back there.
We don't anticipate any. We'll have some fencing, I believe. And some
Okay.
shrubbery. I'll let the.
Okay, I tried to look at the plans to see if there would be a fence or not, and I didn't see anything, so I was wondering about that.
Kevin Heffernan of Stonefield Engineering Design, engineering consultant for the project. In regards to the stormwater and the drain, that is actually one of the reasons why we located the building where it is. We wanted to, one, provide a buffer from the roadway and put the parking in the front area and keep the rear as more of a private residential area, but we still wanted to maintain a significant buffer from our proposed stormwater basin and the existing drain. So we think that that area where you kind of see the path meandering through the rear, south of that area will have, one, the existing foliage that will be remaining as a buffer, but two, for that new basin, per Wayne County standards, we'll need to install 3 different levels of landscaping, one more dense than the other, as you get closer to the pond for, I guess, 2 reasons. One, for aesthetic and nature purposes, but also to maintain a buffer for pedestrians nearby.
Okay. So there's not going to be an actual fence. It's more of a barrier, a landscape barrier.
Right. The intention would be to keep it more natural.
Okay. All right.
Tanya?
So that is, so Patrick, the retention pond and the drain, that would suffice the purpose of all the excess water concern that was discussed during the planning commission meeting?
If the plan development is approved, the next step will be for the applicant to prepare a more detailed site plan with engineering on that. At that point, there will be topographic lines, volumes, and engineering details on the plans themselves. And we'll have more information about that at the time of site plan review. At the least, the site must meet the Wayne County stormwater standards. So they'll have to show on their site plans compliance with those standards. And at that point, our engineers will also be looking at it for general feasibility, but we'll also be working with them to see if there's any opportunities to exceed the county standards. So when we get to the point of site plan review, we'll have a lot more information on the engineering for stormwater.
Okay. Yeah, and I also wanted to comment that, we have this need for this. When I heard about this organization a couple of years ago, I've been working with this organization to connect to other community members so that, the South Asian community, they also have a need for this type of organization. So I'm looking forward to what this comes up with, because I think it's a perfect place for, this kind of arrangement close to what we will be considering the future downtown. And there's definitely a need for this in our community.
Very excited about it. We appreciate the support of the township.
Any other questions? So in terms of just the housing itself, so you already, I know a group of families have come together for their adult children. Do you have room for other people to join, or how would they do that if they were interested?
Actually, we're holding a meeting at the summit on Thursday to bring the public involved in a little bit more. So we're working with leisure services, we're working with Special Olympics, we're working with other groups within Canton to try to bring potential tenants and potential donors to that meeting. And we'll be doing a capital campaign to try to raise the money to close on the property and to have additional funds to get full construction drawings started. Timeline would be hopefully, with any luck, we put a shovel in the ground about this time next year, and then probably 18 to 4 months in construction to get that completed.
Okay, so you have a public meeting on the summit. At what time was that? It was 7 o'clock, wasn't it?
It's, 7 o'clock.
Okay, 7 o'clock at the summit for anyone who's interested in this project. Okay, great, thank
Know
you.
anybody who might have, is interested in supporting through donations and/or might have a young adult with IDD, we'd love to have you there to learn a little bit more. Not having any signups for the units up to this point in time, but just want to try to bring people together to help support because we're going to need to raise money over the next year and a half to 2 years to get this project.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thanks.
G7, consider special land use and site plan for the Learning Experience Child Care Center.
Madam Supervisor, I move that the board adopt the following resolution: approval of the special land use and site plan for the learning experience. Whereas project sponsor has requested special land use approval and site plan approval for a child care center use on parcel number 010990015701 at 8670 North Canton Center Road. Whereas the Planning Commission reviewed the special land use application and applicable criteria, voted 7-1 to recommend approval with conditions as the request meets the criteria of special land use approval in section 27.03 subsection C of the zoning ordinance. And whereas the Planning Commission reviewed the site plan application and applicable criteria, voted 7-1 to recommend approval with conditions as the request meets the requirements of the Charter Township of Canton zoning ordinance. Now therefore be it resolved, the Board of Trustees of the Charter Township of Canton, Michigan does hereby approve the special land use and site plan planning application number 010-SLU-8007 and 010-SPC-8008 respectively, for a child care center use on the subject tax parcel, parcel number 010-99-0015-701 at 8670 North Canton Center Road, as the request meets the special land use criteria and development standards of the Canton Township zoning ordinance pursuant to the information and plans provided, subject to all state, county, and township requirements, and subject to the following conditions. 1, that the required foundation trees be planted along the western foundation wall of the building. And 2, that the traffic impact study be submitted to the Wayne County Department of Public Services and that Wayne County consider requiring a left turn passing lane.
Support.
Motion made by Clerk Seeger, supported by Trustee Foster. The applicant proposes to construct a child care center at the vacant parcel at 8670 North Canton Center Road, which is located on the east side of North Canton Center Road, about 360 feet south of Joy Road. The site is zoned O1 Office and Child Care Centers, which are special land uses in the O1 district, subject to the land use standards of Section 602E of the zoning ordinance. The proposed building is 10,000 square feet and is proposed to be operated by the Learning Experience, a company that operates child care centers throughout the country. The applicant has concurrently applied for special land use review and site plan review. At its meeting on April 1st, 2024, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the special land use and site plan with conditions. Patrick, do you want to add anything to this?
Nothing else to add, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Deputy John, do you want to add anything?
Nothing further to add. Thank you.
Summer, do you want to give a?
Nothing to add, thank you.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Kate?
Yeah, I just am glad that we're asking Wayne County to consider requiring the left turn passing lane there. It looked like at least one of the traffic studies that were submitted was done in the summertime when school is out, and I'm not sure they've anticipated the amount of traffic when the high schools start school. So I'm glad that we're asking for that.
All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Oh, I was just going to ask, Patrick, was there some talk about not allowing left turns during school begin and start, I thought I read, or?
In this case, I don't think we had discussed that specifically as a condition of approval.
But
I think that the operator may have discussions with some of the families of the children that are there in terms of the traffic patterns for them to use to make things a little bit easier for because the existing traffic will affect this facility as much as it will when they operate. So it'll be important for families to use the traffic pattern so that they can get in and out quickly.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item G8, consider site plan for playground daycare child care center.
Sorry, my PDF is acting up on me. Madam Supervisor, I move that the board adopt the following resolution, the approval of the site plan for playground daycare. Whereas the project sponsor has requested approval of a site plan for a child care center use on parcel 038-99-0010-703 at 6512 North Canton Center Road, and whereas the Planning Commission reviewed the site plan application and applicable criteria, voted 8-0 to recommend approval with conditions as the request meets the requirements of the Charter Township of Canton zoning ordinance. Now therefore be it resolved, the Board of Trustees of the Charter Township of Canton, Michigan does hereby approve the plan in the playground daycare site plan and planning application number 038-SPC-8136 on the subject tax parcel number 038-99-0010-703 at 6512 North Canton Center Road, subject to all state, county, and township requirements and subject to the following conditions. 1, the frontage along Fox Meadow Drive be supplemented with additional landscaping to meet the frontage landscape requirements of Article 5 of the zoning ordinance, where other landscape standards do not apply along the frontage. And 2, that the lighting comply with Section 2.13 of the zoning ordinance.
Support.
Motion made by Clerk Seeger, supported by, Treasurer Slavens. I'm sorry, I lost my screen there for a second also. The applicant proposes to establish a child care center within the existing vacant building at 6512 North Canton Center Road, which is located on the east side of North Canton Center Road between Hanford and Warren Road. Specifically, the site is located at the southeast corner of North Canton Center Road and Fox Meadow Drive. The site is Zone C2. Community, commercial, and child care centers are permitted principal uses in the C2 district, subject to the land use standards of Section 602E of the zoning ordinance. The existing building is 3,314 square feet, and no building expansion is proposed. At its meeting on April 1st, 2024, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the site plan subject to conditions. Additionally, at its meeting on March 14th, 2024, and April 11th, 2024, the Zoning Board of Appeals approved variances for the existing rear yard setback of the building, the front yard setback of the proposed fence from Fox Meadow Road, and the location of the proposed dumpster enclosure. Deputy Zelinas, do you have anything to add?
Nothing further to add. Happy to answer any questions.
Summer? I think one of the questions we heard, I didn't quite understand it, that the Yak youth had asked was the incentives for the building. Did anyone?
Yeah, I think I can address some of
Okay.
those questions. Reading through some of the questions previously, I think some of them may have also applied to agenda item number 7, which I can address both at the same time.
Okay.
There were some questions about incentives to use existing buildings. So in the previous application, that was a vacant site on Canton Center Road. The proposed application for playground daycare is a repurposing of an existing building, both of which are daycare facilities. So one is on a vacant site, one is repurposing as an existing building. And in the planning division, we've seen a lot of calls and inquiries about childcare facilities, including home-based daycares. There's a large demand out there for childcare, so we answer a lot of those calls and inquiries. And I think on the previous application, where they were developing an existing site, in many cases, operators look to try to repurpose a building because it's more cost-effective that way, but it doesn't always work for those specific needs. So in the previous application, that was a site that they identified. In the existing application for playground daycare, this is a repurposing of an existing building, and the shell of the building will remain the same with some interior remodels. So there aren't any incentives per se from the township for an applicant or a developer to repurpose repurpose a building. But economically, it's usually better if there's an existing building and parking lot. Most of the time, it's easier to rehab an existing building and site than to build entirely new. So from an incentive standpoint, there may be a private market incentive in that regard. And then the other questions I'll take up are regarding the sidewalks and with the speed limits, those are out of the local control. They're county roads or state roads, so they're going to be set by either Wayne County or the state police. So there's no jurisdiction that we would have over any speed limits. And then the last question about the sidewalks, the playground daycare site has existing sidewalks along both frontages at their corner lot. And the previous application for the learning experience will include a sidewalk along the frontage of Canton Center Road for that application. So there will be frontage sidewalks along all road frontages in both applications.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? No? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item G9, request approval to renew email archive service.
F resized on me again.
Yeah.
It's from
Yeah,
the
I don't know
diagrams.
why it does that.
Oh, is that what it is?
Madam Supervisor, I move to approve the creation of a purchase order for $75,600 payable to CDW Government for the renewal of email archive services provided by Barracuda Networks covering a period of 5 years.
Support.
Motion made by Clerk Seeger, supported by Treasurer Slavens. The township maintains an email archive of all emails sent and received on its Microsoft 365 platform to ensure compliance with established email retention policies and to meet FOIA requirements. ITI seeks to renew the township's Barracuda online email archive solution, which it has utilized for the past 5 years. Director Begbu, do you want to add anything?
Not much, just a reminder that Barracuda does help us out quite a lot in terms of FOIA for anything that has to do with our email, but I'll take questions.
Any questions or comments? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item G10, consider approval to purchase Civic Clerk Solution.
Madam Supervisor, I move to create a new purchase order to Civic Plus in the amount of $9,562.55 for implementation of Civic Clerk and to approve the requisite budget adjustment.
Motion made by Clerk Seeger, supported by Treasurer Slavin. Since its implementation, Civic Plus Agenda Center has been the repository of township meetings, agendas, and minutes. With increasing needs for the more robust functionality and accessibility, the Supervisor's Office, Clerk's Office, Township leadership, and department staff are responsible for creating meeting packets, participated in a demonstration of Civic Clerk. After several meetings, it was determined the solution would meet the growing digital needs of residents and employees. And just to let you know, I did show Victor how we get the tabulation and the chapter bounce, the chapter index on the side, Kate, and so he said he can work with them to do the same. Director Begbu, do you want to add anything to this?
Just to re-echo what you said, we took it to Civic Plus and they confirmed that, yes, that we can actually do that. Also, the question that came up from the study session about the integration with Zoom, yes, it's also integratable with Zoom. We will work out these logistics and make sure that the training is conducted in a way that everybody will be familiar with the way the new system will work, particularly for sessions, the board sessions like this.
Any questions or comments? Summer?
Assuming this is approved this evening, when will you roll this out?
So we did ask them when can they assign a project manager to us. They told us that since we're coming in now, because if you look at the costs, they mark this aggressively down because they want us, in on this. So how do I put it? They are making every move to make sure that we get going. Now, that's on their side. The other thing is on our side, are we ready? Because we also, you have to remember, we also have quite a lot on our hands in terms of the limited resources, but we'll try as much as possible to get it going as soon as we can.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Tanya? Oh,
Based on the study session that we had, I think it's going to be a great addition, and it'll reduce the useless work that we have to do.
Thanks,
I'm
Tanya.
very excited for this.
Thank you. Kate?
Yeah, I think at the study session, I was probably the most skeptical about this. Not that I didn't think it was good, but I was worried about how much it costs, for one thing, you know that, but also how it was going to work for the board. And I'd already decided tonight that based on the cost and the amount of work that, for example, the supervisor's office does in compiling board packets, that the cost was definitely worth it. But hearing that there might be indexing available for us, which really helps us, I think that it's definitely going to be worth it. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'll just say I was pleasantly surprised with the price, so well done in the negotiations.
We do our best when it comes to bargaining. We try our best.
You're good at that. Michael?
Victor, if, once we've implemented this, I get nostalgic for operating through a 583-page PDF document that routinely crashes on me and resizes to 20% as I'm trying to do minutes and maneuver between things. Is there any other software that you can throw my way to frustrate me, to fill that gap that the efficiency of this is going to eliminate?
We can send this all back to you to go back over.
We can figure something out, I'm
On the
sure.
contrary, I'm really trying my best to take away and not trying to throw additional stuff at you. If you can imagine, part of the selling incentive for this is because it still comes under the umbrella of Civic Plus. Now, we're very mindful that we're putting a lot under that umbrella, because sometimes when you do this with vendors, they, just behave like AT&T, public meeting, sorry. Just behave like, monopoly, right? And then they can, charge you exorbitantly. But we're very mindful of that. And we're looking always looking inward with regards to the needs of the township to see what is it that we have already that exists today that can solve our problems or meet our needs. So whenever that challenge comes up, we have to look inwards. Sorry, I can't. I really don't want to bring in something new.
I thought Michael was staying on the old. I'm being a little silly. No, I mean $9,000, $9,500 to have this kind of integrated. That's a steal, and it's a great opportunity for us to spend some time piloting this, get a feel for how it works, especially when you compare that to being 1/7 of the cost of our emailing archive system that we just approved. And this is something that touches multiple departments, that takes up hours and hours of staff time, and is central to how we operate as an organization, how the directors get information to the board, how the board processes that information, accesses that information, how we present that to the community. Ultimately, essentially, this is the window into the transparency of how we operate as an organization, and to get it for, honestly, from a purchasing policy standpoint, doesn't require board action because it's under $10,000. I'm grateful for the aggressive work you did to get that down, and I understand why they want us to try it, because I think once we do use it, we will like it.
Certainly so. I believe so too.
Thank you. Anybody else? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item is, okay, G11, thank you. Consider approval of a purchase order increase to Partners in Architecture for the civil engineering services and contingency for the historic Henry Ford Factory building.
Madam Supervisor, I move to amend the agreement with Partners in Architecture PLC and approve a purchase order increase for the civil engineering services at the Henry Ford Factory building.
Support.
Motion made by Clerk Seeger, supported by Treasurer Slavens. On July 11, 2023, the Board of Trustees approved item G2 for purchase order as listed to PIA for the architectural design bid documents, engineering, and owner's rep for the historic Henry Ford Factory. At that time, the civil engineering costs for the utility connection and minor exterior slab work required for this project were not included in PIA's original scope and bid. As a result, Community Development is recommending an amendment to the agreement to increase the purchase order by $16,275 to cover the added civil engineering cost. The staff are also requesting an increase in the total purchase order by an additional 15% to include contingency and cover any future unanticipated costs that may occur during the remainder of this project in the amount of $18,341.25. If approved, this will result in a combined increase of $34,616.25 to the existing purchase order. Director LaFever, do you want to add anything?
Just asking for a little grace. So these next two items are similar in nature. Things outside of the scope, such as these projects have going, are not out of the ordinary, but not having contingency built in probably is. So as community development, as a new department, probably a little bit of oversight on our first round of asking for board approval on these. So these are just things that have come up in the process of the engineering and design. So again, just asking for a little grace, and in the future, we will certainly include our contingency as we move forward.
Any questions, comments from the board? Michael?
Yeah, this is more of a formatting issue, but like, so the model resolution doesn't indicate how much we're increasing the PO by. I understand the RBA does. But I guess my question would be, if we're moving to amend the agreement to increase the purchase order, what confines it to the $34,000 increase, or not going over $106,000 if we don't have that specificity in the model resolution? I say this just because we're an organization that likes to put in our resolutions the planning application numbers and the subject parcel ID numbers of things and the specificity of the budget accounts in our model resolutions. But to not have a dollar amount in a purchase order, it seems incongruous. Any thoughts from the team on that one?
Do you want to include
You wanna
that
add
in the
them in?
motion?
No, I'd actually like to see further motions like this going forward, to be quite honest. But I'm just curious. Yeah.
Well, or refer to something, refer to a table, like we have on a couple of them in previous meetings. Refer to the cost and the purchase order numbers.
Wendy?
If I may, from a accounting standpoint and tracking, it's much better if it does have the exact dollar amount. It eliminates any confusion from departments over saying, well, the board didn't approve a specific dollar amount. So it gives a little bit more specificity and ease of administration on the back end once some questions come up. So I think it was just missed, to be honest, in the model resolution. So my preference would be that the resolution is amended to include that. That is my 2 cents.
It's a small thing, but different boards, case law indicates that you don't go to legislative history unless there's ambiguity in the actual language itself. So putting something in an RBA has no real legal significance if at any point in time there was litigation among the board, between the board, over how things were done. So I love referring to dollar amounts inside of RBAs. Where I get concerned about that is it has no legal significance. So it's not an actual formal action. It's a cultural thing that we can use to govern ourselves internally. But if at any point in time you have dispute amongst board members, amongst, whatever, that level of kind of flexibility, it doesn't keep us, yeah, okay. So no biggies. This is something I've been working on in my head anyway, just kind of overall how we do our motions. So I'll just think about this one for the future.
Want to amend the motion to include it?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm currently studying why. So I've pulled the minutes of like 6 or 7 other organizations, and none of them bring forward purchase order increases or decreases. And so I'm trying to figure out why we're an anomaly in that regard. So I'm not necessarily concerned as to the necessity of having it there. I was more opening up the question as to why the language was written its way. Just missed. I'm comfortable with how it's presented.
You're comfortable with it as presented?
For the purposes of tonight, yes. For the
Okay.
future meetings, no.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item G12, consider approval of an amended agreement of purchase order increase to OHM Advisors for additional items and contingency at Preservation Park.
PDF did it again. Gonna miss that. Madam Supervisor, I move to amend the agreement and approve a purchase order increase to OHM Advisors for the additional items and contingency added to the Preservation Park project.
Support?
Yes.
Motion
I
made by-
support.
Motion made by Clerk Seeger, supported by Trustee Snyderman. On January 9, 2024, Board of Trustees approved item G5 for purchase orders listed to OHM Engineering Advisors for the bid documents, engineering and owner's representation for Preservation Park. During the development stage, Canton created a new storage shed and additional ADA parking near the Bartlett Travis House, resulting in OHM to change their original scope. Therefore, Community Development is recommending an amendment to the agreement to increase the purchase order by $9,400 to cover the added shed and ADA parking. The staff are also requesting an increase in the total purchase order by an additional 15% to include contingency and cover any future unanticipated costs that may occur during the remainder of the project in the amount of $26,790. If approved, this would result in a combined increase of $36,190 to the existing purchase order. Director LaFever, do you want to add anything?
Nothing further to add. Thank you.
This is the same thing. We understand that, Michael. Yes. Okay. Any other questions or comments? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item G13, consider authorization of bid awards for bus transportation services 2024 through 2026.
Madam Supervisor, I move to award the 2024, 2020 through 2026 bus transportation services to National Trails LLC for summer camp programs at an amount not to exceed $34,293 each year.
Support.
Motion made by Clerk Seeger, supported by Trustee Snyderman. April 2024, a 3-year bid was solicited for bus transportation services for leisure services and community development summer camp programs. 3 companies submitted, with National Trails LLC providing the lowest bid in an amount of $69 per hour without additional per-trip fee, as listed in a table. Therefore, based on past working experience and the overall pricing proposed, Leisure Services and Community Development is recommending awarding the bid to National Trails LLC. In addition, based on the projected number of trips planned each year and including an allowance for extra buses needed, such as situations where a wheelchair lift is required. Staff are seeking approval of a purchase order in the amount not to exceed $34,293. Director LaFever, do you want to add to that?
Nothing to add, but happy to take questions.
Any questions from the board? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item G14, consider authorization of 2024 fiscal year specialized services operating assistance program agreement with SMART.
Madam Supervisor, I move to approve the fiscal year 2024 Specialized Services Operating Assistance Agreement between SMART and the Charter Township of Canton for $89,723 and to authorize Township Supervisor to sign the contract on behalf of the Township pending legal review.
Support.
Motion made by Clerk Seeger, supported by Treasurer Slavens. The township submitted its annual specialized services application with SMART to provide funding for the Canton Mobility Transportation Program. SMART has notified the township that it is eligible for $89,723 under the program from October 1st through September 30th, October 1st, 2023 through September 30th, 2024. Community Development is requesting authorization of the agreement to receive the available funds for the Specialized Services Operating Assistance Program with SMART pending legal review. Director LaFever, do you want to add anything?
Not too much. These funds are money we receive from the state through SMART to help us offset the cost of our transportation program, which I believe all of you are very familiar with. So this is our annual allocation. They're a little bit behind this year in getting this contract to us, so that's why the timing is a little off. We're already well into the 23-24 fiscal year, of course, but that's why the timing is there. So these funds will, like I said, they'll go into the revenue and help us offset the cost of our transportation program.
Questions or comments? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Consider approval of amended agreement with Dance and Feet at Summit on the Park, item G15.
Madam Supervisor, I move to approve the contract with Dance and Feet for the fall 2024, spring 2026 through spring 2026 dance season with a one-time option for a 2-year extension upon mutual agreement.
Support.
Motion made by Clerk Seeger, supported Trustee Snyderman. Dance and Feet has been a longtime partner of Canton Township and our resident dance company for many years. The dance studios located on the second floor of the Summit on the Park have been used primarily for dance classes provided by Dance and Feet since the Summit's opening in 1996. Upon expiration of the last amended contract, the Canton Legal Department reviewed and approved a revised contract with Dance and Feet for the use of the dance studios at the Summit on the Park. Canton Leisure Services is recommending the approval of an agreement with Dance and Feet for a 2-year contract with a one-time option to renew for an additional 2 years upon mutual agreement. As outlined in the attached agreement, the following terms apply. 50% increase in the annual lease fee to $60,000. Decreased use of space, allowing Canton to host additional programs. Upon mutual agreement of the contract extension, a 10% increase in the annual lease fee is $66,000. During the initial 2024 term, an additional capital contribution of up to $10,000 will be paid towards renovating the common hallway area outside of the studios in coordination with the CLS 2025 renovation plan. So just to let you know, they basically celebrated being with Canton, the resident Canton Township dance troupe for 50 years. They started in the Canton administration basement, and we gave them a proclamation on Saturday. Director Holmberger, do you want to add anything?
No, we're just excited to extend our partnership with Dance and Feet and excited that they're able to bring a little more revenue to the table after the slowdowns during COVID. And then we're also going to get a little more space upstairs so we can expand some of our other programs. Any other questions? I'm happy to answer.
Questions or comments?
Just congratulations to them, and it sounds like a great deal for both parties.
Yes. Congratulations. All right, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item G16, consider approval of bid award for the tennis court restoration at Griffin Park and pickleball restoration at Freedom Park.
Madam Supervisor, I move to award the bid and submit a purchase order to Tennis Courts Unlimited Incorporated for the tennis court restoration at Griffin Park and pickleball restoration at Freedom Park.
Support.
Motion made by Clerk Seeger, supported by Trustee Snyderman. In April 2024, the Leisure Services Department advertised an invitation to bid for the tennis court restoration at Griffin Park. As a result, 4 companies submitted proposals, with Tennis Courts Unlimited submitting the lowest bid of $28,000. Pricing for the restoration came in lower than anticipated. Therefore, staff reached out to the low bidder to provide a quote for adding restoration of the 6 pickleball courts at Freedom Park to the scope. Tennis Courts Unlimited provided a quote of $19,450 for the pickleball courts for a total cost of $47,450. Director Holmberger, I don't know if you were here when we had some questions earlier. They were asking about why we do why we're doing Griffin Park and not moving on to Floden. I know we had discussed that earlier also, so if you want to kind of talk about that.
Yes, certainly. So basically, we looked at the conditions of the courts and did an assessment of which ones were in the worst shape and what would give us the biggest bang for our dollar. Griffin Park has 4 courts at it, whereas Freedom has 2. So by doing those, we can provide a better service to the community. Our initial intent was just to do Griffin Park using traditional techniques that aren't as good. We would have spent close to our full budget on just Griffin Park, but this is a company that brought us a new technique that utilizes some different technologies that are used. They've been doing courts at a variety of different places, U of M, Kalamazoo College, lots of other colleges, and are kind of a leader in the industry. So they came in significantly lower than expected, so we were able to add additional courts to our budget. So we selected the pickleball courts based, again, on condition, but also demand from the community. If you've ever been out to the pickleball courts, you know that they are extremely busy almost all the time. And just the demand continues to increase, so that's why we selected that. We would love to also do the Freedom, but we only have so many dollars available to us, so we selected the biggest bang for our buck and what will serve the higher percentage of the community based on usage.
Okay, and they also asked about windbreaks. I know that we had put one in at Freedom Park, and they'd asked if we could consider doing it at the others also.
That's
Griffin
something we
and
can look into. Those are not significantly expensive.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
So any plans for the Floden Park in the future?
Freedom?
Good. Sorry, didn't they
Freedom,
talk-
we're planning to do that next year. We have funds available in the 2025 budget.
Didn't they talk about?
They said
Floden?
Floden for tennis.
Floden Park.
They must have meant.
Sorry, I'm kidding. The 2 F parks make get flipped. You're correct. Freedom is pickleball, Floden is tennis. So yes, Floden we plan to do in 2025.
Is it possible to let them know?
Yes, I think Emma is actually
Okay.
corresponding with them, correct?
Thank you.
Yes.
Additionally, we have contacts with all of our tennis groups. We have tennis lessons and tennis leagues and programs, so we put that information out to them as well.
Questions or comments? No. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item G17, consider approval of a resolution to support implementation of the Ground Emergency Medical Transportation Program in Michigan.
Madam Supervisor, I move that the board adopt the following resolution in support of implementation of the Ground Emergency Medical Transport Program in Michigan. Whereas the Charter Township of Canton Fire Department provides ground emergency medical transportation, or GEMT, services for township residents, which includes many medical beneficiaries. Whereas the GEMT program available, or GEMT program available through the United States Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services provides reimbursement to public providers for services provided to Medicaid patients. Whereas the state of Michigan is not currently participating in the GEMT program, which is a voluntary enrollment program at both the state and local levels. Whereas the emergency services sector has struggled with workforce retention and recruiting in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. Whereas the GEMT program will help Michigan public agencies, including the Township of Canton, retain and hire employees. Whereas the GEMT program has shown to expand access, quality, and sustainability of emergency services for Medicaid recipients for public providers. Whereas the MIGEMT Coalition is advocating for the passage of legislation directing the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services to enroll in the GEMT program. And whereas the MIGEMT Coalition includes the Michigan Association of Fire Chiefs, Michigan Municipal League, Michigan Townships Association, Now therefore be it resolved, the Board of Trustees of the Charter Township of Canton supports the implementation of the Ground Emergency Medical Transportation Program in Michigan and urges the Michigan State Legislature to adopt legislation directing the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services to enroll in the GEMT program through the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services State Plan Amendment process.
Support.
Motion made by Clerk Seeger, supported by Trustee Borninski. The Ground Emergency Medical Transportation Program seeks to provide supplemental payments to emergency service providers that provide critical care to Medicaid patients. This in turn will enhance the provider's ability to recruit and retain staff, maintain equipment and infrastructure, and above all, provide quality care for Michigan's Medicaid population. I know Director Stockline has worked hard with the whole state on this and the whole region on this initiative, so yeah, did a great job there. Do you want to add more to this?
I would just add that we finally have a House Bill 5695 that's in the House now and moving through, so hopefully that will get through committee there and then get over to the Senate and get voted on. But we stand at about 25% today of Medicaid billing for all of our patients. So we could gain $750,000 up to $1 million, $1.5 million a year annually if this can go through. And it's all subsidized by the federal government. So with that, that's where the the ability to recruit and maintain and pay for staffing will come in. So Wendy likes the program because bringing money in.
Yeah, so good job on helping them in Lansing with this one.
And we'll get some support up there and we'll get it moved through. So that's the goal.
Very good. Questions or comments? Kate?
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing this to us today. I know that schools have already been doing Medicaid reimbursement, so I think it's definitely something that is good that we looked into.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item G18, consider the adoption of a revised fee schedule for EMS services.
Madam Supervisor, I move to approve the adoption of the proposed fee schedule for emergency medical services provided by the Canton Fire Department beginning May 15th, 2024.
Support.
Motion made by Clerk Seeger, supported by Treasurer Slavens. In order to sustain the high level of emergency medical service our Canton community has become accustomed to, the Fire Department periodically reviews billing practices to ensure we are recovering the appropriate associated costs beyond revenue received from taxation. A comprehensive review conducted this year resulted in a report of recommended ranges of acceptable fees by service type. The department is recommending the Township Board adopt a revised fee schedule that provides for the minimum allowable fee to be assessed for resident patients and the maximum allowable fee to be assessed to non-resident patients. Note, the majority of patients billed will not see a change as most claims are paid through insurance. If approved, the proposed fees would become effective May 15th, 2024. Director Stockline, do you want to add anything?
I would just add that we haven't updated this since 17. So these are like the minimums that the insurance company will pay out. So that's kind of what we're going off of. And in the future, I'll try and bring this to you more often so that we can keep up on top of what the insurance companies will pay for.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item G19, consider approval of collective bargaining agreement with the International Association of Firefighters, IAFF, for a term commencing January 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2028.
Madam Supervisor, I move to approve the collective bargaining agreement between the Charter Township of Canton and the International Association of Firefighters with a term ending December 31, 2028, and authorize Township Supervisor to sign on behalf of Canton Township.
Support.
Motion made by Clerk Seeger, supported by Trustee Ganguly. The current collective bargaining agreement with the International Association of Firefighters expired on December 31st, 2023. The parties have come to an agreement on terms for a new 5-year agreement expiring on December 31st, 2028. The IAFF has already ratified the new agreement. Would you gentlemen like to go to the podium and make any comments?
Hi, I'm Mike Toms. I'm president of the Canton Firefighters Local 2289. And I'd like to acknowledge the work done by the Township Board negotiating team working through this, and as well as appreciate any support from the board that would help us retain, recruit, be competitive in the workforce in the fire service. We appreciate your dedication to the employees.
Thank you. Thank you. Any comments or questions from the board? Oh, start down there, this end,
Michael?
this end, this end.
No. Tanya, did you? I guess I'll start. Congratulations to everyone who worked on this. Deputy Supervisor Halvern is not here, but I know that he worked incredibly hard to make this happen. I'm really excited for what this means for Canton Township and our ability to recruit and retain amazing firefighters. And just looking forward to building the 4th fire station and being able to fill it with great firefighters.
Michael?
I'll be the first person to use the word echo on this agenda item. I'm going to echo the sentiments of Trustee Foster and my gratitude to fire admin, to the township administration team, the bargaining team, the firefighters union for putting in this work. The township made a series of strategic decisions coming out of the last recession that were necessary at the time, but put us at a place where both police and our fire services were not sustainable. They weren't sustainable because we were struggling to fill those positions, to recruit folks. And as other communities began to get the memo and adjust accordingly, they saw an increase in their ranks, and we were struggling to recruit folks in to a pool that was getting smaller and smaller. And this is the community where I am raising my 4-year-old and my 3-year-old. And there's a lot of reasons I like Canton Township. Schools, the parks, clerk's office. But public safety is at the top of my list. I know when something happens and I have to dial 911 or call the non-emergency line, I know we're in good hands. And this contract allows us to get staffing levels on the fire side, hopefully up to the kind of levels that we expect here in Canton Township. And ideally will allow us to recruit because we have the fortunate benefit of having this money to build a 4th fire station. But it's no good to build a 4th fire station if you can't fill it with people. And so I'm very grateful for this contract, and I think that this sends a clear message, hopefully, to the state of Michigan about how Canton Township views fire and emergency services.
Anyone else?
I'll go next. I'll be brief. Congratulations to both sides. I'm very excited about this. As I collect taxes, people move to Canton because of our schools and our police and our fire. It's such a safe community. I have friends in other communities who, when their parents get older and want to move into a condominium, they send them here to Canton because they know of the excellent service. And so with this contract, I know we can continue to keep our great firefighters as well as hire new ones. So good job to everybody.
And I'll just add that congratulations to both sides, everybody who's been named, and Chief, thanks for your leadership on this as well. And this board came in 4 years ago, and some of us 8 years ago, saying we value our employees. And I hope we continue to show that we do value our employees. I'm glad we were able to do this, working collaboratively. So thank you very much.
So, yeah, what everybody else said, but also thank you to everyone involved. You know, firefighters are really, really important, and you know, all public safety is, but I have a special place in my heart for firefighters. I had an accident a couple of years ago where it was not in Canton, but I had to be transported to the hospital by ambulance, and I was really touched by the service I received at that time, and I know, I mean, we hear, we get reports, we know how valued you are in our community, and we value you too, so thank you.
Tanya?
I was like, you know, when Summer said Tanya, I was not sure. Yeah, I just want to echo everything everyone has said today. And a couple of years ago, when we did the Firefighters Academy, we heard about your concerns. And when we came in 4 years ago, the workforce like development and wellness of the employees was one of the top things on our list. So I think I'm very excited that we are moving in that path, and I'm very excited that this will bring in more firefighters in the community as we build our 4th fire station.
Thank you. I know the teams work very hard, and it has been said, I mean, some of the people have said to me that they like the sounds of sirens. That's why they live in Canton, because it tells them that hope and safety are nearby. So, I'm very proud of everybody. The teams worked hard. I watched everybody go back and forth into the rooms, and Deputy Supervisor is not here, and Chris Stockline, and of course the union team. I know you guys worked hard, and you kept coming back and getting down to the business, and you know you've been working hard out in the community too. A lot of runs going on. I know this. I hear about every day what the reports are, how many runs you've done, and so I'm hoping this will bring you relief, get some more firefighters in to help train them, and get you guys back on track from where we were before. Thank you. No. So, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you. Congratulations. Oh, I'm sorry. Chief Stockline, would you like to say something?
No, I just wanted to take a moment to thank the board, right? Because I came back to you several times and told you my concerns, right? And you listened to them. And it's important, and it's just as important as for the union. We've got the best firefighters in the state, and we've got the best organization in the state. And without your support, we wouldn't have that. So it's important for me to acknowledge them, and especially Joe that's not here. He did a great job of, mediating a lot of that stuff. And so I just can't say enough about the board and the support for this fire department and going out and doing our strategic plan and working in the community, the support of the community. It really shows that we are needed and that the community cares about the firefighters that are here. So with that being said, thank you again for that support, and thank you for supporting me as a chief to make those decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Last item on the agenda, G20, consider approval of amendment to the funding formula for the 35th District Court Control Authority, DCA interlocal agreement between Canton Township, Northville Township, Plymouth Township, and the cities of Northville and Plymouth.
Madam Supervisor, I move to approve the amendment to the funding formula in the interlocal agreement for the 35th District Court District Control Authority and authorize Township Supervisor to execute the agreement on behalf of Canton Township, and to approve the following resolution. Approving the new financing and sharing section of the interlocal agreement for the 35th District Court Authority. Whereas the charter townships of Canton, Plymouth, and Northville, and the cities of Plymouth and Northville, collectively the municipalities, all currently utilize the courthouse for cases originating in their respective jurisdictions and are part of the district control unit for the 35th Judicial Court, which is housed in the city of Plymouth. Whereas the 35th District Court has been funded by each of the 5 municipalities located within the 35th District on a pro rata basis as defined in an interlocal agreement of 1989. And whereas the communities have agreed to amend the pro rata funding as defined in the updated Section 4 Financing Sharing Agreement, Attachment 1, now therefore be it resolved that the Canton Township Board approves and agrees to the new terms and conditions of the interlocal agreement, Section 4, Financing, Sharing Agreements, Attachment 1, as of January 1, 2024, and further authorize the township supervisor and the township clerk to execute the interlocal agreement on behalf of the township.
Support.
Motion made by Clerk Seeger, supported by Trustee Snyderman. The 5 communities which form the District Court Control Authority for the 35th District Court wish to amend the funding formula which funds court operations. The current formula hasn't been updated in over 30 years, and all of the communities wish to update the formula to better fit today's legal environment. The new funding formula is fairer to all of the communities and the court as it accounts for both the fixed cost of maintaining the court and variable costs based on court usage. The new funding formula being proposed is as listed with the pro rata fixed and the pro rata variable. This new formula has been reviewed and approved by the DCA's Finance Committee, the 35th District Court, and is now being sent to each community for consideration. Wendy, do you want to kind of talk a little bit about the differences here?
Sure. Sure. The primary difference here is the current formula that we've been using for years and years and years is based 100% on the caseload percentages. So it's all variable. And what has tended to happen is Canton has been historically, back in the day, we were about 50 to 55% of the caseload at the court, and that has squeaked up to about 70% of the cases at the court, which means we're responsible for 70% of the court activity based under the current agreement. When really the court is there to service all of the communities. So we were able to talk to the other communities, and fortunately, they agreed to taking a portion of the cost as fixed, which will actually help us. So basically, they're acknowledging that because the court is there, whether there's one case, whether there's 0 cases or 1 case, that court has to stand and be there to serve all 5 communities. So they agreed to put about 35% of the overall costs of the court are going to be based on a fixed percentage based on the population of each community. The remainder is going to be still variable based on a caseload percentage. But what that means to us is Canton's about 50% of the population, but if we're about 70% of the caseload, that's actually going to help in our favor. So it should reduce our costs somewhat. It could swing, if someday our caseload is lower than our fixed cost, like than our population, then it could swing the other direction. But at least right now, we have a more predictable budget cost that we're going to have to fund the court. And as we've talked about in the past, the court used to return money to the communities, and that has turned. The revenue, the ticket fines and fees that have been coming in for the court no longer support the court operations. So this really came to a head this last couple of years as we've been having to send money to the court to help fund their operations. So this is a win for us, for the most part anyways, at least based on the last few years, this is a big win for us. So we appreciate the other communities who are going to have to take a hit. This requires a unanimous vote by all 5 communities, and the other 4 communities have agreed that this is the right thing to do, and even that means they're going to have to pay a little bit more. So we're grateful for them for looking at it from that perspective as well.
Supervisor Abbo helped create the formula, and so he really helped with that of
He did.
Northville Township.
And Northville Township, to be honest, is the one who's going to take the biggest hit financially, and they were comfortable with this.
So I think the other communities will take it back, and by mid-June, I think we will have all of the votes at that time. But it will take effect back towards to January 1st, 2024.
Okay.
Diane? Yeah?
I just want to make a comment. Thank you, Wendy. This makes so much sense, having a fixed cost. So I appreciate you working with Supervisor Abbo in getting this done.
Thank you.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Okay, so public comment. Sir, could you please go to the podium, sir, and state your name? Give your comment. We have 3 minutes, please.
Gerald Dotson. I've been a resident of Canton, Michigan since June 1995. I rise to salute the brave men and women of the Canton Police Force. I'm an American hero 5 times over. I was a senior advisor to numerous Secretary of Defenses and 5 presidents for 30 years. I know government. I know about policing. Our brave men and women of the Canton Police Force are an inspiration to me to continue my good work in the world. Recently, I gave a speech, and I have 170,000 followers on TikTok. So people know me and know I'm not running for president. I believe that in these times, we have to support our police force. We stand behind them. And I want to say that the dauntless, and I do mean dauntless, men and women of the Canton Police Force are my heroes. People ask me, who are your heroes? The Canton Police Force, under the stellar leadership of Chief Baum. He is an inspiration to me. These brave men and women, day in, day out, 24/7, protect us. Protect us. And I'll tell you this is New York City. Ain't nobody coming in at the Canton, Michigan to assault our police officers. If I'm on the sidewalk, I'll be in the melee. I'm not putting up with that. I have 0 tolerance for assaulting police officers. And in any altercation, our police officers always get the benefit of the doubt. No quarterbacking, no second guessing. They have our support 110%. These are our heroes, day in, day out. And we need to support them. We are the eyes and ears of our police department. We are together. They're our police department, not anyone else's. Our police department, under Chief Baugh's leadership, is the epitome of policing in this country. And I want to say this, Chief Baugh and the Canton Police Department, I salute you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Well, I would say I agree with that 1,000%. Because we do have a good police, we do have a good chief, we do have a good town. But, you know, we are coming up to election season, because I've already seen this in my door. But here's what I'd like to say coming up to election season. I've stood up here before and I've told you what I think is good, and I've told you what I think is bad. You know, I think we've done well this last term. Can we do better? I think so. I think so. And I would like, I'm not going to go into the whole thing tonight, but I'd like to say, I think this next time in this whole arena that we have is a pivotal changing time. And I think we're doing real good here on the change. And I just hope that we could all come together as more of a community and not let this election divide this community, and find a way to bring this community more together and try to fill these rooms more and get more public involvement and public comment and involvement from folks. And absolutely, you know, we support our police, our fire, the internal workings of the community. We're happy to be here. I know I am. I'm happy to live here for a long time. I enjoy living here. Do I get frustrated sometimes? Absolutely. Is there better places to live? I don't know. I'd say yes. Is there worse places to live? Yeah, absolutely. But this is still home, and I just want you to think about this when you're out campaigning is how do you bring not just one party and another party together, but all people together? Not just what party are you on? That's irrelevant. It doesn't matter what party you're on. We're all one community here. And I think we have to grasp that. If not, we're going to live in two halves. And I don't like living in two halves. Two halves is not good. So, have you done a good job? Yeah. Have you done a great job? No. Can you do better? Sure. Can we all do better? Yes. That's what we need to think about. And how do we meet that common goal? So think about that when you're on the campaign trail looking for everyone's vote and see how we can make this all a better place. Thanks.
Thank you. Let me look online. Okay, well, anyone on Zoom? Let me see. Anyone online want to share public comment? There we go, that's better. Please raise your hand electronically. I can see you. Okay, there we go. So we have 3 attendees. If you want to make public comment, please raise your hand electronically and I will call on you. I see no hands. All right, thank you. All right, next on the agenda we have any staff comments? Chris, go ahead.
I got a flyer here, and we'll get this posted online as well, but Monday, May 27th, we're going to have our annual Memorial Day service out in the park at 10 a.m.
Oh, very
So
good.
the Honor Guard will be out there. So if you can make it, that's a wonderful service. And the police department's going to be helping us out again this year.
We'll post that too.
We'll get this posted.
Okay, great, thank you. Thank you.
The name of events, we have our Canton's 25th Relay for Life this Saturday in Heritage Park. Great event, hundreds of thousands of dollars raised in our time here with Canton's events. So that's 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. in Heritage. So I know several of you I'm sure I will see out there. Also on Saturday night is the Canton Cares Road Rally. So I know they're still looking for interested teams to participate. That's 4:30 to 7:30 Saturday evening. And of course, we have our Bark in the Park on Sunday at the dog park. I know Clerk Segrist and Commissioner Dobbs' office will be joining up efforts to promote dog licenses there. But we have the event on Sunday. It also happens simultaneously with the farmer's market. So farmer's market kicked off this past Sunday, and will continue on through the season until October. So lots happening. And of course, Hazel Coffee and our program with our outreach programs and our therapeutic program continues every Wednesday through Sunday out at Preservation Park. So go grab a coffee out at Preservation someday.
Thank you.
Supervisor, I have one announcement. At St. John Newman on May 21st at 9 a.m., there's going to be a blue mass that celebrates police, fire, and first responders that live in the township. So if you're available, it's 9 a.m. Tuesday it was moved from the 15th. So
Right,
update
it's
the township.
supposed to be tomorrow, yeah, and they moved it a week later, so hope to see a lot of people there.
That was the 21st?
Yes, the 21st at 9 a.m.
I want to put in a reminder to everyone. This is an election year, and certainly we've been seeing a lot of activity going on in terms of cybersecurity. It's really huge based on what we're seeing, and we want to remind everyone, particularly those who are involved in election, to be very mindful how we conduct business. It's no longer just about what you do online, but also the way you do what you do. There's a whole lot of things to be said about that, which I'm not going to go into in public meeting. We'll do our best to secure the infrastructure, but the activities that we're seeing is basically coming from state actions. And so it's no longer just individuals trying to infiltrate or trying to break down systems, but these are concentrated efforts coming from states. We're doing our best, but I just want everybody to be aware and be mindful how we do what we do.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, on the board, Kate, do you have anything?
Well, hope everybody had a happy Mother's Day. And I don't know if anybody was able to see the Northern Lights the other night, but I went out a couple times and saw some pink and purple, so I think I saw something.
Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you. Yeah, this was a nice night for public safety with all that we approved and the honors that we gave and the comments tonight. So that's great. One way we can support our police and fire is through their fundraisers. I know the fire department has a golf outing later in the summer that we will mention as we get closer to that. But the police one is coming up. It's on June 12th. And you can sign up to be a golfer or just come for the meal and donate to the Police Benevolence Fund, which supports fallen officers, families, and also people in need in the community. And that is on June 12th, and you can go to localimpactalliance.org and click on events, and you'll find the sign-up sheet. So thank you.
Hopefully, everybody had a great Mother's Day. It was a wonderful weekend. This was a great meeting. And I hope everybody starts to enjoy this beautiful weather.
Tanya?
Yeah, I'm sure everyone had a good Mother's Day weekend, and also May is Asian American and Pacific Islanders Heritage Month. So we will probably have a resolution at the next study session, and we might invite a few people to give them the resolution.
Summer?
As Trustee Snyderman said, tonight was a great night for public safety. And as I was reading the resolution for Officer Esselink, I was reminded of the time my son, when he was about 10 years old, did something incredibly stupid and gave someone online his phone number. Come to find out, it was a grown-up. And I was scared, and I called Officer Patty, and I said, "Can you please talk to this child before I do something that I shouldn't do?" And she did, and she was wonderful with him. And I think, she probably doesn't remember it because she's probably done it a billion times. But I don't have any doubt that any number of our officers would have done it. And so I am incredibly grateful to Patty. I'm grateful to the leadership of our Canton Police that encouraged them to be active in our community and to, address situations like that to keep kids out of trouble.
Thank you, Michael.
All set?
Okay. Well, we had a great night. I don't know if everybody knew this because we had a tree planting ceremony. So we put in new trees in Heritage Park, but around the Veterans Memorial, I don't know if that was made public. We planted 6 tall columnar oak trees to represent all the armed forces in the country, and it was really good. I know we did it, but I don't know if everybody realized it. I mean, we did, but I don't know if the public realized it, the significance of those oak trees around the Vietnam Memorial. So go out and take a look at them, enjoy the trees that we planted, and they're going to be very tall one day. Okay. All right, great. So can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion made by Clerk Seeger, supported by Trustee Foster. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Meeting adjourned.